call this meeting to order. Everyone please rise. Say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Ron Winlosey. Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. So good evening, everyone. Our first session here tonight in your packet is the public question and answer session. And I think we have the Tompkins County Sheriff Derek Osborne available. Pat?
Yep, I'll admit him. Oh, or if Pat's...
And also the Milton Meadows Regional Manager, Sue Ellen Holmes. The reason that we called this session in was to have a general conversation about law enforcement in Lansing and to open the floor to people who have questions. If it is due to a specific incident, there won't be any comment on that because the investigation is going on. And if anybody wants any information about that, I was urged to pop up the Ithaca Voice. They see some updated information, and I'll leave it at that. So, sometimes these, between Milton Meadows and the Sheriff's Department, they may be overlapping. So I would like to have Sheriff Osborne available first. And if anybody has any questions for Sheriff Osborne, CJ will let them in. Some of the parameters, though, are to be polite. If people get too passionate, I'll ask them to rethink their position and be calm. If they continue to not be calm and are disrespectful, we'll ask them to leave. So having said that, CJ, do you have anybody in there that's waiting to talk to Sheriff Osborne?
There are 19 people here in the waiting room. So would you like to admit them one at a time or?
Yes.
Okay, hold just a moment, please.
As we're doing that, Ed, I want you to know I'm here. It's Bronwyn. My video is just not working at all. So.
That's okay, Brown. At least
But
you're here.
I'm here. Otherwise.
I think this guy's for privilege of the floor, not for this part.
Yeah, I'm here for privilege of the floor.
Okay, well, let's move on then. There'll be a session for that a little bit later, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Next.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes. Could you identify yourself, please?
My name is Dean Shea. I reside at 416 Asbury Road, Lansing.
And this is a question for Sheriff Osborne?
No,
Is this a question for Sue Ellen Holmes?
no.
Okay, Brett, can we wait?
Or for special permit?
Okay, can we wait on that until we have that discussion? Okay, next.
Okay, it's listed as
Hi,
administrator.
Mikey.
Okay.
He's probably just watching.
Hello.
She's not connected yet.
Yep, there's somebody to the right.
Her audio's not connected yet.
Okay,
Gotta love technology
it works.
when it works.
So we have you on video. Is she mute or just doesn't have the,
She's not connected to audio.
okay.
You can't, can you see that one over there?
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, hi there. Did we lose it?
Okay, well, try the next person. How about that?
Should we go on to the next person? Is it Jennifer Austin?
Yep.
Jennifer, can you hear us? You're gonna have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yep, I can hear you.
Are you here for a question for Sheriff Osborne or Sue Ellen Holmes?
I was just trying to watch the meeting, which wasn't available on YouTube.
Okay,
It is on YouTube now. They were tuning in too early, I think.
okay, Jennifer, I've been told it's on YouTube now. Perhaps you could revisit that?
Sure.
Okay, CJ, next. These are all people that only have questions for Sheriff Osborne or Sue Ellen Holmes, please.
Yes, well, certainly trying.
You're doing fine, CJ.
Yeah, John.
John, hello. Could you unmute yourself, please? Hello, John? John? Oops.
Next.
Okay, CJ, next.
Okay.
Okay, we have Julie Eisenhut. Hello, Julie.
Not yet. Gotta connect.
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
Okay.
Maybe she could let a couple people in at one time.
I don't know how this works, to be honest with you, as far as letting them in. And of course, we don't know what they're,
There you go.
okay. Hello, Julie. Julie Eisenhut?
Hello.
Hi.
Julie's voice changed.
Are you here for Sheriff Osborne or for Sue Ellen Holmes?
Sheriff Osborne, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
You're actually here to listen more than get an understanding.
Okay, so do you have any questions or comments for Sheriff Osborne at this time?
Well, I guess from the incident that happened, did this just start or was there something going on before?
Well, let me circle back here. If you're talking about the incident that happened recently, that's something we can't comment on right now because the investigation is ongoing. So this is a general discussion about law enforcement in Lansing and general concerns.
Okay. So general, well, I don't have anything specific to that.
Okay. Then we'll go on to the next one then.
And could you make another announcement that if they're just here?
Yep.
Yes.
To go to YouTube?
Yep.
To just listen.
So let me just go over this one more time, is that tonight for Sheriff Osborne, this is not about the incident that happened last week because there is an ongoing investigation. If people want to read about this, it is in the Ithaca Voice. If they want any information, it is there. But we're not going to comment on anything now pertaining to any certain incidences because it is an ongoing investigation and it might compromise it. So these are general questions directed either at Sheriff Osborne or to Sue Ellen Holmes, who's the regional manager of Milton Meadows.
And if they don't want to speak, they can go to YouTube.
Go to YouTube if you want to listen.
And for clarity, if you just want to listen, you can watch this on YouTube and not have to be in the. And my understanding is right now is that the YouTube is up and running. So thank you for your patience, and we'll move on to the next one, CJ.
Yep, just admitted somebody named A.M. Elliott.
Last name is Elliott.
Don't know that.
Hello? What is the name? I can't read it from here.
It's A.M. Elliott, but it's all one.
Okay, so A.M. Elliott, are you there?
Next.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. Once again, if you have a specific question or comment for our sheriff or for the regional manager of Milton Meadows, hello, the session's about. What is the name? I can't read it from here.
It's A.M. Elliott. It's all one.
Okay, so I see a Deb Ducharme. If you're on, can you unmute yourself? If you have a question for the sheriff or for the regional manager, please. Okay, CJ, let's go on to the next one. And Colleen, you'll have time, okay? We're not going to forget you, okay? Who's the person between Sheriff Osborne and Rankin?
That's Sue Ellen.
There she is. I thought she was blonde. I haven't seen her in such a while. Hi. Your hair got longer. Colleen, you'll have time, okay? We're not going to forget you.
It is.
Okay.
It's the COVID hair. It got long.
So we have Jessica McDonald. That's all I got here. Jessica, are you on?
I am. Hi, good evening, folks. I do have a question for Derek Osborne. Sheriff, thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you so much for all that you do for our community. I do believe you're a resident of Lansing. Is that correct?
I am. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So as a resident of Lansing myself, I do have a question. And irregardless of whether or not the recent events transpired due to anybody at Milton Meadows or anywhere in Lansing, I do believe, based on my monitoring of the call logs from the Sheriff's Department, that we have seen an increased volume of calls in Lansing, New York. And Sheriff Osborne, I would like you to comment on that and let me know whether or not those calls have been violent, non-violent, drug-related, etc., and whether or not those are in keeping with the national statistics with the current COVID crisis.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. That's a lot of information for me to try to get out. Certainly, we've seen an increase in calls throughout Tompkins County, especially during COVID times, especially in the area of domestic incidences, harassment type complaints, assaults and things of that nature that one would expect to come from being cooped up for so long. In general, throughout Lansing, yes, our calls have increased in the town of Lansing. So yeah, they have increased. A lot of it is in the village. Some of it is out in the town. I can't give you specifics unless you want me to address a certain area, but yes, in general, calls are increased throughout the town of Lansing.
I appreciate that, Sheriff Osborne. Thank you. I'm perfectly capable of mining the logs myself. May I ask who's in control of this meeting? Who is monitoring time?
Who's monitoring?
Who's monitoring time for questions? How much more time do I have to ask?
Keep going. You can have as much time as you want, Jessica.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So Sue, this is my question for you. My understanding is you're the regional manager and you are supervising the residents at Milton Meadows. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. So I have a question for you, and I will hope you will forgive me for being long-winded, because it is kind of a long-winded question from personal experience.
Sure.
So if I were to have a friend who had left an abusive relationship where somebody was abusing her children, sexually or not, regardless, and she were to qualify for Section 8 housing vouchers, and she were to be a resident of your community,
Yes.
she would be totally under the laws and absolutely 150% deserving of those services. However, if her abusive husband, or let's just call him predatory husband in this circumstance, were to befriend somebody who lived in your residence and decide to live with them but not be on the lease, how do you screen for that?
So that's a really great question. And I will tell you that screening for guests of residents is a very difficult thing to do. And it doesn't matter if it's COVID or non-COVID. We have to rely very heavily on other folks who are noticing folks, parking in the lot who don't have a sticker, who aren't one of the residents of the property, and who are, a long-term guest that seems to be staying. But when it is a guest and it's not a person on a lease, it is very difficult because they're in an apartment community, independent living. There is nothing stating that you can't have folks that are coming to visit. Now, the rules do expressly state if you have someone staying for an extended period of time, 4 weeks or more, and it's becoming excessive. We do 6-month inspections. We do have folks that are on site handling maintenance and management. And if they're noticing and recognizing, or if the person delivering mail, which is a set individual outside of, their 2 days off per week, if we start to notice there's a change of address form, we have a relationship with a post office to find those things out that way as well. So we have a few different ways that we can monitor that, even though there's not an official way to know that someone has a guest. When that happens, then we do consider that a lease violation, and we do address that aggressively, because that is a violation of the lease and the LIHTC rules for folks living in the apartment community, because of course their income is dependent on them qualifying for living there. And certainly also beyond that, their qualification for the Section 8 voucher, whether that's through the Housing Authority or TCA or INHS, there's multiple places they can get a voucher. They're going to expressly rely on family composition that's reported in addition to income. So I hope that answers your question.
Sue, I totally appreciate that. And I absolutely understand that your motivation is to absolutely have residents who deserve to be in the housing, they're in the housing, and to not pose a community risk. And I respect that. I think I have a 2-part question, so I'll ask you the first one. So with the current limitations on evictions because of the COVID pandemic, if a resident were to allow somebody who is a sexual predator, pedophile, somebody who had prior sexual assault cases against them, would you be able to evict them or no?
Right now, until the courts open up and the circuit courts give permission and don't have in place, quote unquote, a stay order, we would be able to if they were a quote lifetime registrant on the Druce Joden National Sex Offender Database. Not everyone who is a sexual offender is a registered sexual offender. That is something that has changed over time, where there are folks who could be a level 1, where they're not lifetime, for instance, and perhaps they're being monitored and there's a different recourse for how that's handled. If I find out that there's anyone who is, for instance, manufacturing methamphetamines, or, is a sex offender that's a lifetime registrant, even if they're not, if they're a guest and it's becoming not a guest situation, but an unlawful resident who's not added to the lease, mid-COVID, even though Cuomo states that anything non-rent related we can go after, we've had landlords that have posed the question to him on his live, when he was having the live weekly updates, explaining to him that the circuit courts from the state level have passed down information stating that until April 30th, we can't even get to court. And when we get to court, there is a specific directive stating that irregardless of the reason for eviction, rent or non-rent notwithstanding, there will be no immediate eviction. There's a 60-day stay order. And then per the Affordability Act of 2019, another Cuomo directive, at that point, there's not even a 3-day notice put on the door. That becomes 14 days. So right now, realistically, it brings me to mid-July. And that's on the basis of April 30th, me immediately being able to take these things to court. And as you can imagine, there's a backup of folks who are unfortunately looking to evict folks. And, you know, the likelihood that we're all going to get in the door of court on May 1st is pretty unlikely. It's pretty unlikely. So I imagine we're not looking at mid-July. I imagine we're looking at August 1st. There is one caveat to that. A Texas judge ruled just a few weeks ago that the CDC ruling, essentially telling all landlords that they can't evict right now during the moratorium, they ruled the moratorium unconstitutional. So and that was in Texas. So if that sticks, we may open up that door for eviction much sooner. I do have a couple of folks who aren't following rules on the property, and our intention would be for the non-rent related folks to pursue eviction aggressively and immediately the moment the courts open up.
Thank you, Sue. I really appreciate that very detailed explanation. Can I do a time check again? Because I want to make sure I can get through my questions and prioritize them.
Keep going, Jessica.
Thank you. So, Sue, my understanding is that even if you know there are people committing crimes, whether they be felonies, misdemeanors, drug production, sexual assault, etc., basically your hands are tied by the state. And so I'm respectfully, I see your face on this video chat and I understand your hands are tied. And I am not at all trying to make this a point of mismanagement by Milton Meadows, because that's not the point here. I think the point is we're in a predicament that is the perfect storm. So my questions here are going to predominantly go, therefore, to Sheriff Derek Osborne. So Derek, my question here, the town of Lansing, unlike other towns in the county, such as Groton, Trumansburg, Dryden, we lack our own municipal police force. And given the current proposals for the redefining of police forces, or reimagining, if you will believe that, there are way different standards being set forth. So do you feel like your office is adequately equipped to respond to the demands of the Lansing community at this point in time, given the restrictions of COVID, the inability of those in Milton Meadows to remove those who are committing crimes, and to protect our citizens who pay, quite honestly, quite a high tax base to live here? Do you feel like you can protect our interests, or should we be pursuing our own police force?
I don't think you should be pursuing your own police force. I think if your concern is taxes, that would make them go even higher, quite honestly.
Can you give me an example? Because if Dryden and Trumansburg, who are quite honestly not that much higher from us in the tax base, but do have their own residential forces, could you quantify that for me?
Yeah, well, let me finish what I was saying. For starters, the town of Lansing is not the only town that doesn't have its police force. None of the towns in Tompkins County have their own police force. You're referring to villages like the village of Trumansburg and the village of Dryden that do. And when it comes to taxes, obviously, if a village per se has their own police force, they're going to have their own village tax. We don't have that in the town of Lansing. Of course, we pay town taxes, but it would be hard for us to say you're going to create a police department specifically for Lansing and your taxes aren't going to go up. But again, I provide law enforcement services. I'm not an economist or a tax specialist, but speaking to the sheriff's office specifically, we cover the entire county, all towns, and we also back up the villages because most of them, other than Cuga Heights, cannot provide 24/7 coverage.
Derek, I apologize for interrupting you, and I really do appreciate the service you provide. I'm a wife of a Leo, and I understand. How many county deputies do you have on the road at any given time?
We have 27 deputies all the time, and for any given shift, we have 3 to 4 for the entire county. So
okay, so if you're running at an average of 3, and you have a deputy over in Trumansburg or Newfield or Enfield, and perhaps one is in Brooktondale or Slaterville, and one may be near the department, what's your response time to Lansing?
Well, I can't give you response times to specific locations from one location to another. I can tell you our typical response time to any call is approximately 14 minutes, which is quite long.
So in this particular instance where people were driving through our town, shooting guns at one another, there was enough time to lapse where people started firing at one another at an apartment complex and drove through our community, drove through highly residential areas because the non-residential areas are shut down due to bridge construction, and your deputies didn't even have time to respond. Could you extrapolate on that?
Well, I don't know the specific response time to that incident itself, but you know, we do have a dedicated deputy that covers what we call the 325 patrol zone, which covers the town of Lansing as well as the town of Groton. Again, that's quite a large area. We also have the state police that help us and back us up, and they were involved in this incident as well. So as far as a specific, how long did it take a deputy that particular night at that particular time to get to it? I can't tell you that.
So Derek, I do owe you an apology. That comment was quite adversarial. Let me take it back into something that's not in sort of our immediate vision right now. So if there were somebody who were watching our children play on the ball fields across the street from Milton Meadows, who was not a resident, but maybe somebody who lives there because they have a friend who lives there and they haven't been able to go through the proper procedures, and their friend hasn't been evicted through the proper procedures because of current COVID law, what would your response time be if I called you and said there was somebody taking pictures of my children at the ball field?
Again, that's a very tough and actually impossible question to answer. And I don't take any of your questions as adversarial, so please don't worry about that. Our response time would be as fast as possible, obviously.
I appreciate that. I really do. I know the job you guys are standing up to. I know what it is to be spread thin, and I believe I was told I had as much time as I wanted for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the town board.
Jessica, may I interrupt for a minute, please? Can we circle back to you, because there's other people that want to ask one or two questions. We're not going to deny you any more questions, but I'd like to circle back to you in a few minutes, if I may. We have some people here that are also waiting to have questions, and when they're done.
I appreciate that. However, I asked multiple times how much time I had, and you told me to keep going. So I was trying to keep track.
It's okay. Like I said, we want to get back to you, but there's other people here also, and we'll circle back. Okay.
Okay. So is this Ed under Patrick Tyrell's account?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Ed, I appreciate that. I think I'm just wanting to understand. As town supervisor, can you please let me know, given the current information from the sheriff and from the management of Milton Meadows, who has said their hands are tied, and the sheriff who has said they're at a very limited capacity of people to respond to calls. What are you going to do as town supervisor to protect our community?
Well, I constantly talk to Sue Ellen Holmes. I constantly talk to Sheriff Osborne to find ways to mitigate these concerns.
But it's not their problem, Ed. It's your
If I may-
problem. You're
if I
town
may-
supervisor.
Jessica, if I may finish, please. If talking to Sue Ellen Holmes tonight, there is light at the end of the tunnel. This won't continue indefinitely. And are there some bad characters? Yes, there are, but there's bad characters everywhere. But once again, as Sue Ellen Holmes has stated, there is an end to these concerns, and there's a process to govern those. In the meantime, and I'll ask Sheriff Osborne for a little bit more direction, which will swing into a different conversation, that what can our citizens do to be diligent forward? Right now, everything's on edge, and we have to be extremely careful. But once again, it's not just one apartment complex, there's something else. We have to be careful as we move forward. Now, if your primary concern is only about Milton Meadows, I think Sue Ellen has stated her action plan moving forward when the restrictions are lifted. Now,
Ed,
if
I hear you 100%.
Jessica,
However, I have been 100% crystal clear here and in my comments online that I have not 100% concern about Milton Meadows. I have 100% concern about our community. Are
If
there
I-
bad elements in Milton Meadows? Yes. Is their hands tied by the current guidelines from COVID? Yes. I'm curious how you and Sheriff Osborne are going to protect the children within our community, and you are again twisting my words.
If I may finish, one of the things is we have our county legislator here in the room, Mike Sigler. One of the things that the conversation will be, it sounds like we need more deputies.
I agree 100%, but I also think that we need to pursue our own police force because given the current guidelines under the reimagining public safety, that also applies to the county, not just Ithaca Police Department, as many like to say, we are going to see our deputies stretched too thin. We need our own officers who are able to do actual community policing. I'm not talking about people writing traffic tickets. I'm not talking about people responding to domestic disputes. I'm talking about officers who can improve community relations, which currently the sheriff's department, through no management of their own, lacks. And that's where my problem is. If you want to see an improvement in Milton Meadows, you should see officers engaging with their community and understanding who the violators are, and then taking action against them and cleaning up our community so that the residents of Milton Meadows who deserve to be a part of our community have a safe place to live and a safe place for their community to grow. And right now we're not providing that.
One other thing I would add to this is that I would urge the mayor of the city of Ithaca to let his police force take care of the city of Ithaca. A lot of,
Respectfully, the mayor has nothing to do with this, and I believe Sue was going to speak.
but I was going to urge this, that once again, the Ithaca Police Department take care of Ithaca and allow the deputies to be outside of that area, considering that Ithaca has their own police department. So
Respectfully, our own county and the Ithaca City Administration work together to draft that. So any changes to the police enforcement in our community apply to both Ithaca Police Department and our county police department. And I believe you should let Sue respond.
Hi there. I actually would like to take responsibility for any concerns you have that may be coming or stemming from Milton Meadows. It's important for me to let you know that I do take that responsibility very personally, even in the midst of COVID, because I refuse to use that as an excuse. If any of the items of concern, Jessica, that you mentioned are not hypotheticals and there's truth behind some of the what sounded more specific concerns are, I would urge you to reach out to me privately if you'd be willing, and give me some of those details, because even though I can't necessarily go to court right this moment, I definitely do have other avenues I can pursue, specifically if it pertains to a previous abuser coming back to a person living in a set aside unit, which is the case, by the way. So there are caveats and other things I can do to try to assist there. And if there is someone either visiting or who is a resident who you feel concerned about over at the ball field with the children, I would love to know the specifics of that, because again, I, as a mom, not even as the director of Milton Meadows, take that very seriously, and I will do everything to address it now, let them know that they're being watched, let them know that the moment things open up, things will be pursued. And if they're a visitor, address that aggressively with the tenant that they're visiting, that there is an issue with the person. And if it's ongoing, by the time it opens up, they would possibly be without housing. So I do have avenues I can pursue, and I take that responsibility. It's unfair to pass that off to the sheriff or Ed at the town. So please reach out to me about that.
Do you want me to share the contact number?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
Ed, I appreciate it. I can find her. I'm perfectly capable. Sue,
Well,
I
I'm gonna-
100% appreciate that. I appreciate that the management stands behind that and is willing to take action. My concerns, I do have facts and information I would like to share with you.
Thank you.
Again, Derek Osborne, I have no problems with the way your department's running things right now. I do know your hands are tied by the relationship between Ithaca and the county and the way things have been proposed going forward. And I understand that's going to change the world of police work. I want to thank you all for your time. I'm done. I apologize if I got adversarial. Ed, I respect your work in the town and your work to make Lansing better. I just do have concerns as a parent in this community. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to my questions and responding to them. And please continue with your meeting.
I'll just
I don't
leave
have
you
one-
with Jessica. Feel that you can also come over to the office. Days that I'm not there, Renee is in the office as the community manager. We take it very seriously and we would welcome your visit.
And for the record, Jessica, I don't have one negative thought about this. Okay? Not one. I wish you well, and I share your concerns. So thank you for your input.
I
I'm
appreciate it. Thank you, Ed.
going to share this number though with people that they can get hold of Sue Ellen Holmes. And it's 585 424 1400, extension 333. Once again, it's 585 424 1400, extension 333. That way you can contact her directly, okay?
And just a quick message, even evenings and weekends, that rings through digitally to my email. I do call people back within moments if someone calls that number and I don't answer. So just please know that as well, so that if something were to happen and you need a conversation on a weekend or evening, I'm available.
So CJ, we're gonna do a timeout from the people in chat room. I wanna have the people that are in the town hall tonight have their opportunity now. And Colleen, do you wanna come forward and speak? Yeah. Should be right in that microphone right there, okay?
Hi.
Hi.
That was very nice to hear Sue and Holmes talk. That was.
Can you speak closer to the mic? I'm really having trouble hearing you, please. Thank you.
Colleen, can you get a little closer to the mic, please? There we go.
Is that better?
Can you hear now, Joe?
Just barely. She really needs to talk right into the mic.
Right into the mic.
Okay.
There you
That
go.
better?
Is that better, Joe?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, just go ahead. Feel free to just to yell. It's okay. Or raise your voice. Go ahead.
Okay. I hate speaking in front of people like this, but I just have some things on my mind that probably no one's gonna help me with, but I wanna state them anyway. There's a lot of nice people down here at these apartments, and there's not so many nice people. I've seen a lot. I live right on the border with them. There's been about, since it's open, there's been 3 incidences that had gotten me concerned. The first couple incidences was people walking, rather than on the dog trail, they would cross across my lawn from the corner way down by the apartments all the way through up to the road. My son was here at both of those times, and he asked them, please don't ever do that again. This is private property. And my mother lives alone, and I don't want you on here. We tried putting up signs, but they didn't stay for some reason or another. The one older man that walked through, he would just ask us to please take him home because he was having a hard time. And there again, my son said, you cannot communicate with my mother. I do not want you to do that or anyone else at the apartments. So that has only happened, that happened 3 times. So I haven't had any more problems with that. The last 2 incidences, and I know the sheriff probably doesn't want me to talk about it, but the incident the end of last week, which was a really bad disturbance right at the end of my driveway. There is kids living in this close to my area. The language was absolutely beyond words. It was just horrible. And they were, I thought people were gonna run over them and kill them. They were in the middle of the road, throwing punches. I mean, they were really at it. So I was standing on the porch, just kind of listening to it, because for me, I think that's very close to home. And I was scared. I was really, really scared, Sheriff. We had 2, and as far as people coming fast for when they call you, there was 2 sheriff cars here and 3 state police cars here within 6 minutes or more. They were all very good. It was hard for them to even stop these 2 from fighting. I don't know who these people were, but I'm quite sure, 99% sure they were from these apartments. I've seen the car that was parked in the driveway across from my driveway. I've seen it go down into the apartments many times, and they're usually speeding out or speeding back in. I try not to get involved because there is a lot of nice people there. I know there is. We wave at each other lots of times, so, you know, there's nice people there. But, and then the other incident, just Sunday night, I won't get into it because I know I'm not supposed to, but that was very scary. Like the 2 people out in front of my house, there could have been a knife involved, there could have been a gun involved. And maybe if it went further, I'm right there. The neighbors right across from my house have 3 little children. Their father, they would go upstairs and close the windows and just stay there because they were also very scared. My husband passed away. I'm sure most people know him or knew him, Bart Hilliard, in 2009. And ever since then, I have lived alone. I'm in a 6-bedroom house, but I love my yard. I love my house. And I am very comfortable comfortable there. I have, for that many years, I have been really comfortable. I work out in the yard, I do anything I want to, and no one bothered me. Nobody ever bothered me. They might come in to visit a little, but, you know, I thank good for that. But the one thing that I did appreciate, while this was going out in front of my driveway, one of the state troopers actually walked all the way down my driveway because he saw me on the porch. And he asked if I was all right. And I said, I am all right. It has nothing to do with me, but it's very, very close to home. And I said, I'm just very scared. And he said, ma'am, I want you to go in the house, lock every door in the house because there is problems here. And I said, thank you so much. And I did appreciate that so much. But other than that, you know, there's nothing I can do about these things that are going on. And there's a lot going on. So thank you very much. And thank you also to Sue Ellen.
Ma'am, can I actually address you? I really would love to talk to you about this. I very much appreciate you sharing that. I know that took a lot of courage, and I'm very sorry you experienced that. I want to actually offer you an additional phone number because regardless of whether or not the situation that happened at the end of your driveway was from a resident of Milton Meadows, or even if it was not, we take very seriously that we're a part of the community, and knowing that you're living alone right next to the property, we have 2 staff members at all times on site. And if you have something going on and you're not feeling safe, and we're, you know, perhaps you contact the sheriff, perhaps you don't, we can be there before 6 minutes because we're right there. And I want you to feel always welcome to call our office so that Renee in the office, either herself or Zach, my maintenance super, can run over and, you know, try to help out. So I want to offer you that number. And then I also, when it comes to people going through your yard, certainly if they're cutting through from Milton, I'll take responsibility on that and say, we could perhaps put some signage up on our property before yours. Just making sure they're aware that it's private property beyond that point. And also, we put out a monthly newsletter. And certainly I would like to just address, and I don't have to be specific with your property, but just, you know, make them aware that the neighboring properties, it's important that they respect the boundary lines. So there are a few things that we can do. And please, if you would take a phone number that I would like to give you, it's for the Milton Meadows office.
My daughter will take.
Okay. The number is 607-319-5033. Renee is the one who will answer the phone most of the time. She's the community manager. And then Zach is our maintenance supervisor on site. And they're very caring. They will definitely, while awaiting the sheriff or whomever you may call, or even if there isn't a sheriff, and as I said, even if it's not related to Milton Meadows, if you're just feeling frightened or you need someone to check on you, we're happy to do that. So please take that number and keep it on your fridge and call.
Okay, thank you so much. And actually, a number of the deputies have stopped at my house just to check on me also, which is another reason I'm very pleased with what they do. They sort of just keep an eye on me. I mean, they don't always drive me, but they have driven me and just check on me. So I do appreciate that, Sheriff.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in there, Sue. Thanks for offering that. That truly is what community is about, and I appreciate you taking that stance. And ma'am, I think I can echo your concerns. Like was mentioned earlier, I am a Lansing resident myself. I live right on Ridge Road. I believe I know where you are. I think I'm right down the road from you. actually. So I drive by your house a couple times a day, at least going to and from work. And so I'll certainly urge you, if you ever have any concern, please call us and we will respond as fast as possible and help you out. And I'll even offer you, if I'm not going to announce it live, but if you want to give me a call at the sheriff's office tomorrow or later this week, I'll be willing to talk further with you about these issues and provide a way for you to contact me directly if you would like to. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, and get away from this. I love living in Lansing and I love my house. I just want to stay there safe. Thank you all.
You're welcome. So Colleen, the places that they're walking on your property, is that on the road, Louise Vermont Road, and your property?
If you go, you know where the apartments are, right where the lawn starts. They cut right through there and come up and go just all the way through. Even if I'm out in the flowers working, anything, I'll cut through. And I think my daughter has something to say about one of them that kept going through. So,
Do you have an approximate length, whether that would be a distance? I mean, would a split rail fence work over there?
I think any kind of a deterrent would be a good idea.
Well, my apologies for not moving forward on this, even though we thought we got some roadblocks. Mikey, I have a question for you. Can we put a split rail fence on town property for that area? That's something could you look into? Because I know we were having some roadblocks here before. This might be a unique situation, but that may be something you can talk to Colleen or Robin about to see where this area is.
There you are, Ed. Yeah, I mean, Cricket and I can possibly look at it and see if there's enough room, if it's on town property. Those are the guidelines we'd want on town property. We can't go installing fence on somebody's private property, but we could look into that, sure.
Or if you can just give an estimate on the fence, and maybe it'll work with the Lansing Community Council to pay for it, or to get a fundraiser going for the fence, and try to do this as a community process, okay? But I need to have an estimate on the cost first before we get moving on this for you. At least put up some sort of barrier there so that they're really gonna have to make an effort to get through.
the thing is with going across my property, all they have to do is go 4 feet further toward the house. There's a dog trail, very nice. It's kept mowed, it's very nice. They could make the same trip, but they just will miss my yard.
Sometimes
No reason they can't do that.
Sometimes you can put a fence with an L.
Yeah.
You could even do that in retail. You put an arrow on the ground and they just walk that way.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can do these things. But I think if we get some definition there, maybe, I want to know what my parameters are first, okay? If we have to go public, we'll go public. If we can't go public, we'll go private. But I need to know an estimate of what cost is before we move forward on this, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
I just have a few things I want to say.
Please.
I'm not gonna-
No, that's what we're here for.
Okay, my name is Robin Adams. I'm Colleen's daughter, and I thank you for having this meeting.
You're going to have to speak right into the mic or I won't be able to hear you.
My name is Robin Adams. Colleen is actually my mom. And I want to appreciate you for having this meeting with this on the agenda today. I'm going to try to be very brief. I came down here thinking negativity because I'm scared for the children of Lansing. I'm scared for my mom. And it's upsetting when you have a community that's very tight knit, very secure, and all of a sudden there's issues that we've not had to deal with in the past. Mr. Osborne, I just want to say my mom is correct. The sheriffs have been wonderful with her, and I can't say enough. And Sue, I'm so happy to see you not in person, but I I do have a couple questions. I had one incident, personally myself, that was it was over the summer, and it was at the Lansing Market, and there was someone from Milton Meadows that was, asking money of people.
Oh,
And,
okay.
it was a very confrontational. There were people talking to him, trying to get him to leave. I kind of saw this was going on and tried to avoid it. And even started to pull out when this man walked up to my car and knocked on the window and wanted money. And I knew he had an incident, same man down to my mom's. He was one of the ones that had walked through the yard. So I had an issue with him on that. And I don't know what came of it. I ended up driving away. I closed the window and drove away. But I feel good knowing that I have numbers for you and office members that are on site, and I appreciate that. And I'm wondering, if I call you, is it a good response time for people getting back to me? And
Oh, yeah. You'll hear, if someone doesn't answer you immediately, you'll hear back within 5 minutes.
Okay.
And with regard to the incident, I have a sneaking suspicion I'm aware of the individual, and he is, if it's the person I'm thinking, it's one of two people. I'm literally waiting with bated breath for the courts to open, and he will no longer be there. However, I would be interested in having, if you could give more of a description, just so that I'm certain it's who I think it may be. I'm 99% sure, but I would love to have that input, just for my own confirmation, because we aren't just worried about Milton Meadows. We want to make sure we are a longstanding good member of the community. And what's really just unfortunate for us is our timing in when Milton Meadows opened, in conjunction with COVID and what it did do for us as far as reputation, because so much of our, this does tie our hands, but that also is not an excuse. We have very serious intentions on the moment we're able to take action on things, doing that. And like I said, there are certain things we can do in the meantime to address things. So
that was one of the things I was going to ask. If from either other people that are living there or things that people have seen and they believe that there's drugs being dealt.
I have a young man, actually, I have a young man who is wonderful, who works at the market, actually, who has mentioned to me an individual, and what you're describing is what he described to me. So I have asked him to be more aggressive about the fact that, listen, you are able to, as a nuisance, tell him he can't be on the property anymore. And so I've also followed up with, this person does have a worker working with them for emotional reasons. And I have also followed up there as well, if in fact it is the same person. And as I said, I'm pretty sure it is, but please reach out and give specifics and confirm that.
Okay, and just one more thing, if you are aware or have heard from people that are living at Milton, that there's a good possibility drugs are being sold or there's that kind of thing going on, is there anything you can do?
Yeah, so we encourage folks, if there's anything like that going on, any activity, especially if it's after hours or weekends, to reach out directly to law enforcement. But if we find out about it, we reach out as well. We find ourselves to be very fortunate. Our response time, because I did check that before this call, my staff seems to think it's right around the 8 to 10 minute mark, that anytime they call, they have someone there within 8 to 10 minutes at the most, which I think is pretty good.
So you and the sheriff are working very closely together.
The sheriff's office has a presence. They drive through the property when they're on shifts and they're coming through the area. They even log that they kind of swoop through the whole property during their shift as a visit, as part of their shift. So we love the police presence. We think it helps, and it wouldn't matter if You know, we had the perfectly quiet situation, non-COVID, and everything going well. We still appreciate a police presence. We think it's a good thing.
Okay, well, thank you. That's very reassuring. We have the phone numbers we need. And again, it was very nice talking to you all in person, and I do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Sheriff Osborne, is there a phone number people can call in general if they see something, say something that would be anonymous? So that, 'cause I know a lot of people are concerned about their own safety if they get involved, and that's understandable.
Yeah, thanks, Ed, for bringing that up. We actually do have an anonymous tip line people can call. People do got to keep in mind that sometimes when things are anonymous, it does make it a little more difficult for us, given the situation, to respond. But we do like the information just the same because it sometimes does match up with other things and does prove helpful to us. Our tip line is 266-5420. 266-5420.
Thank you. One thing I will add is that Sue Ellen shared this with me, that now it sounds like standard operating procedure will be they'll have cameras out on the facility. And my understanding, Sheriff Osborne, that's extremely helpful as you try to weed out the bad players, so to say.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I mean, cameras for one provide a level of assurance for the residents. People tend to not act up so much when they know they're being viewed on camera. And it also provides us valuable evidence if things do go bad. So that would be a great thing.
Good.
I just have one question.
Come on up and speak right into the mic, please.
Okay, thank you. I guess I just have one question, and it is about the incident that happened this weekend, but none of the details. I'm just wondering, is there any extra patrolling that's being done as far as in the area where the incident that had taken place?
I am comfortable in telling you that we don't have any reason to believe that the players involved in this situation will be returning to the area. But we do understand the concerns, and when things like that do happen, we do beef up our patrols in that area, and we will be doing that and have been doing that in this circumstance as well. So yes.
Okay, I mean, I get what you're saying. You guys seem to believe that because of the situation, that it's not a problem any longer. But I don't feel like that's the actual situation. Where, without saying too much, I mean, there's still people coming and going in apartments and things of that nature. And I don't feel safe where I live right now, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I don't doubt what you're saying is true. I'm sure there are people coming and going. But yeah, all I can say is, yes, we are increasing patrols. All our deputies, of course, know about the situation that happened. They're being extra diligent to keep an eye on that area, and we are around. So we will certainly do everything we can to make you feel as safe as possible. So
would you feel more comfortable with a private conversation?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so you can reach out to the sheriff's department, have a private conversation.
yeah, absolutely. You can call me and ask to speak to me, and I'll take your call for sure.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. One more thing for Mr., as we say, OMT, one more thing. There are some current, we're just going to do a little segue here and we'll come back to Milton Meadows in a moment. There is concerns about we've talked about this extensively, about the traffic that has come around Myers Road. And I know that you're making every effort you can to try to maybe minimize that. We're trying to get the word out, especially tractor trailers. And we were hoping that a lot of this traffic would be minimized once the bridge in Lovettville came through. But I'm still having people share concerns that they are there. And to your credit, I see that the sheriff's deputy is usually sitting at the All Saints parking lot, amongst other places. So once again, just to reiterate that, I know as these things ebb and flow, people get the word out and they stop, and all of a sudden they start again. That was just a concern someone wanted to share with me, to share with you, is I know that after another year or so, this will be probably a moot point. But for now, they are very concerned about the tractor trailers. I have asked if they can to get a license plate, description, something, and share it with the sheriff's department. But if not, like I said, even with the wide shoulders, people are just concerned about the heavy traffic with the heavy trucks. And that's all. And like I said, you can respond to that now if you want. I know you're aware of it. Once again, it's a concern that they share.
Yeah, no, I understand completely, Ed, and thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I live on Ridge Road. I'm well versed in truck traffic myself, and I also don't like it. But yeah, we've had very effective results in the past. We've had issues with this ongoing even before the bridge project, more towards Peruville Road, coming in and out of Lansing, and we've had very great success in not only targeted patrols and traffic enforcement, because that does get the message out very quickly amongst truck drivers. But we've also taken it a step further and tried to reach out to the actual companies and talk to them. And that has also helped get the message out that we're out, because they certainly don't like commercial vehicle traffic tickets. They are very costly. So we're aware of the bridge project going on, the increased traffic that's resulted from it. And we will continue to try our best to be on top of it, for sure.
I do appreciate that. You know, unfortunately, this is a unique situation where if you don't start in King Ferry, you start down towards here, where do you go? You turn around maybe in Lansingville's fire station up there by Ridge Road in Eldrine. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can try that. Sure.
Yeah, there really isn't a lot of places. And once you come down this path, you know, you almost are committed, unfortunately. But thank you so much. CJ, do you have anybody else waiting in the chat room for any questions or comments for Sheriff or Sue Ellen Holmes?
Could I piggyback on what you said just a second, Ed?
Sure.
Along with truck traffic, I've heard concerns from people about speeding through there. And I'm sure you've kind of upped patrols and are keeping an eye on that, but just wanted to reiterate that concern. And also, if people are concerned with folks speeding by their house, what's the number they could call to kind of bring it directly to the sheriff's office attention, seeing as you're probably the most likely ones to deal with it?
Yeah, they can call us directly. That's not something I would call, the dispatch center for. I would call the sheriff's office.
Right, exactly.
Our main number is 257-1345. 257-1345. That would be the best way, and they can either connect with me or they would be passed through to our road patrol lieutenant, who often is the one, most often, that sets up traffic details and directs the patrol force.
Thanks.
I'd like to piggyback on this discussion because I'm hearing a lot of complaints from people in Ludlowville. Now that the new bridge is much wider, there's a lot of speeding traffic through there. And I've had several people saying that the traffic is really a problem.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. I can pass that along as well, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. CJ?
Yep, there's a few more here.
Yep, go ahead. I have Nate. I hope that right.
Yep.
I'm learning.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, CJ, I guess maybe Nate's not, he's just listening perhaps. How about the next one?
Oh, okay. I'll try Matt.
How about Matt's iPhone? Still waiting? Okay, while we're waiting, let me share some information with you because we talked about veterans. Sue Ellen, you can reiterate this from Milton Meadows. Veterans get first choice as long as they fit all the criteria. They have 121 prospective applicants waiting to get into Milton Meadows. And of that, we've got some data here. Right now we have, on the property, we have 73 children live there. there was some concerns with the schools. 40 are school-age children, less than the 45 that was originally projected. Of those 40 residents, 11 moved to the property outside of the Lansing School District. That means that there was 29 that were in the Lansing School District that just went to a different address. And there are 33 that are non-age school children. So here's some data on the zip codes. Now, granted, you can have an Ithaca zip code and still live in Lansing. But they say here 43%, which are 31 households, are Lansing residents. So they came from another place in Lansing to live there. There's 23 households that were of the Ithaca address, or I should say zip code, and there's 12 households that are of the East Ithaca, and 6 households of the Cortland Onondaga County. We also have 24 seniors reside there. And to be quite frank with you, Milton Meadows is looking at a second phase, which would be strictly seniors, mostly one bedrooms. Let's get that out in front here as far as this goes before we have any recommendations. But it is common knowledge they have been doing test sites over there to see if they want to actually do this or not. Having said that, my understanding was that the minimum was 5, I think, units, and we have 8. We have 8 veterans. And once again, I've been saying this ad nauseum on Facebook and any place else I can. Veterans, you need to apply. You get first choice. You know, if we have 8 there and all of a sudden there's 50 openings and they all qualify, depending on what the bedrooms is and everything else, you get first choice.
Right.
So can you share that, please? I'm getting tired of Facebook telling me I don't care about veterans. And I do. That's one reason we did this. So I think I made my point. So having said that, do you want to elaborate on that also, Sue Ellen?
Sure. So, of the 8 veterans that are living in the property, 5 of them have physical disabilities or traumatic brain injury from their service. And at your suggestion, Ed, the units are either accessible or adaptable so that if someone comes to us with a unique need in order to live independently, we provide the reasonable accommodation that allows them to be able to do that and not end up living, if you will, in a nursing facility at the age of 20 or 30. We have that situation in 5 cases, actually, where folks were previously in that situation and now can live independently that were veterans, that are veterans. So we also link them up with Soldier On, which is a local organization. It's all nonprofit 501c3. They assist with relocation. They assist with helping find jobs, with security deposits, rent, furniture, all of the things that a veteran would need to come in and be able to live independently and make their transition successful. The very first resident I moved in, I was really proud of. He was living out of his car, really tough times, and has an apartment, is doing really, really well.
Excellent. One of the good news is that the building, which is unfortunately now closed to the public, when their community center opens up, we'll be able to bring food to them from the food pantry and leave it there, working with Tony Adams. I think there are people working with Tony Adams for the food pantry now to deliver to them. We'll be able to do the winter clothing giveaway and just put racks of clothes over there that they can shop at their own pace. That we've seen some of those people come to the winter clothing giveaway when I was manning that over at the community center. It was very nice to talk to them. Love them to death. They're just happy that they're there. They have a safe, warm place to live. Having said that, things are going to get better there. We just need to get the handcuffs, no pun intended, Sheriff Osborne, get the handcuffs off your management team, because I'll say this again. We did a lot of research going forward that when I talked to the supervisors and mayors that had your management team in there, and I asked them off the record, would you do this over again? And they said, absolutely. And like I said, the town center committee was 4-0, the planning board was 6-1, and the town board was 5-0. So, you know, we're very encouraged that I think we're going to turn this corner and finally get an opportunity to have you shine about what a great management team you are.
Thank you.
CJ, anybody else in the chat room?
Yep, a few more.
Send them in, one at a time, please. No, Brian? Shooting butts?
Connect.
Hi, Brian. Is that Brian?
Still connect.
Yep, few more.
Hi, do you have a question for either Sheriff Osborne or Sue Holmes? Brian?
Yeah. Hi, how you doing, folks? Yeah, so past week been interesting, and I'll be honest with you, I'm actually quite surprised that actually happened in my hometown. I'll be all right. You hear me just fine?
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
So go ahead, please.
All right. So quick question. I got a couple questions actually. So what is the company that owns the Milton Meadows? Like, what is it? Conifer?
No, it's Rochester's Cornerstone Group.
Okay. Now, do they own Keats Way, Poets Landing,
No,
Lindeman Creek, Conifer Apartments?
no, sir. In
There's
fact,
no connection?
not whatsoever. The only other local building that we have any ownership stake in at all is actually called Cayuga View Luxury Living. It sits right behind the Ithaca Bakery. That is the only other one in the area that we have any ties to whatsoever. And outside of that, the majority of the housing we're involved in is scattered all over New York State. And I would welcome you to, as Ed mentioned, pick up the phone and even call townships where any of the places listed are, and you'll see a little bit more. You'll hear honest feedback from those towns and cities on our management and our properties.
Okay. The reason why I asked that question is because it seems like you guys follow the same plan as the properties I listed. Okay. And I look at like the crime there. Okay. The individuals are there. And I understand that a majority of the individuals there, they're just trying to live there, trying to go ahead and have a life. Right. But for the few that are troublemakers, all right,
Yep.
that's the problem, right? That's what we're talking about. That's why we're having this meeting. So has crime in Lansing increased specifically due to Milton Meadows? I guess that's
I'm gonna go out on a limb and just tell you, because of the fact that there are 72 families living in a smaller area, I'm certain that it probably contributes. But you should also know that across New York State, available right on the front page of the New York State website, domestic disputes and calls have increased by 30% across New York State.
Okay.
And the calls that we're receiving, the issues that we are having, primarily domestic in nature. And again, I mentioned, I don't know if you were on earlier and heard me talk about, I have a couple of very distinct individuals who, when I tell you I'm watching the clock, I'm waiting to see when we can open courts. I'm on weekly podcasts that involve the state circuit courts so that I'm fully aware at all times of when I'm able to take these individuals to court, and quite frankly, not just at Milton Meadows, across the entire portfolio of all properties we manage in New York State. It is not a Milton Meadows issue. I know it feels that way to you because it's in your community. It is a widespread, unfortunately, COVID related issue. And I promise you, I'm not using that as an excuse. The way we manage, we have the ability to get folks out. We don't want folks staying there that aren't following the rules. We have every intention on evicting as there are issues, the moment we are allowed to do so.
Okay. But I guess my thing is that, I used to be around that area. And how many days a week is law enforcement at Milton Meadows? I mean, I'm sorry, like going by, it seems like it's a daily occurrence.
You're absolutely right. We're very happy that they are, and that the sheriff's office has been wonderful enough to make that part of their shift, if you will, is that even if there was literally not a single bit of activity whatsoever, and this was pre-COVID typical conditions, we welcome them driving through. We love the police presence. And they've been great about that and provide that. And we appreciate that. So we welcome that they're
I
there.
imagine that right. And I imagine any community would love their police officers to go through and interact by all means. But compared to the rest of town of Lansing, all right, I'm just wondering that it appears that there's more police activity over at Milton Meadows compared to the rest of Lansing. That's what I'm just saying. I mean, and it isn't for a positive thing. It isn't like they're going in there and just saying hi and talking to, the public, the citizens there. It seems like they're there for calls, right? I mean, they're called there. And that's what I'm trying to figure out is that has crime in Lansing increased due to, and you said yes, and you're saying it's because of COVID, but I guess one of my things is just like compared to the rest of the town of Lansing, I mean, is that really true? I mean, if you look at the rest of Lansing, is it really like COVID affecting everyone? Which it is in a certain aspect, but it just seems that Milton Meadows is the problem here.
I understand. And I will say to you again, even if there wasn't COVID, when you have 72 families in a smaller area, it is going to appear that way. But what I would also suggest you do is definitely visit the New York State website and look at the statistics on visits and law enforcement and the increase, domestic related 30%. And Sheriff, I apologize if I'm getting any of these stats wrong. I'm just going by New York State, not specific to Lansing, but 14% on non-domestic. So crime is up everywhere. That's unfortunate. And the only thing I can say to you about anything that's happening within Milton Meadows, I certainly am aware. I'll be honest with you. I'm very transparent about it. I'm aware of an increase in domestic disputes. It's tough. You have kids that are home. You have families that are home all the time. You have community spaces that are closed that are typically open. You have after school programs that they can't attend anymore. It just doesn't lend itself to it's a perfect storm, if you will. And then add to it 72 apartments in a smaller area. I, like you, am waiting for this to open up. Bring on the herd immunity that we're supposed to be seeing anytime between now and June. And hopefully that Texas judge who stated he finds the moratorium on evictions to be unconstitutional, hopefully that sticks. And I can move forward much quicker and I don't have to wait because that is not me passing the buck. That is me ready with paperwork to evict.
Okay, great. This is my other question. How does the vetting system work at Milton Meadows? And how are you going to improve the vetting process so we don't have these individuals? Because I'll be honest with you, there's a particular individual lives there. I know he's a problem. I think the whole community knows he's a problem and he's there to stay until, of course, the COVID, things taken care of and you can evict.
Without his name being mentioned tonight, I believe we've spoken about him perhaps a couple of different times tonight. And I would just tell you he's 100% on my radar. We are doing what we can do outside of literally evicting him, which will be recourse as soon as we're able to. And we're working with this individual's worker who is assigned to him, if in fact it's the same person, and I believe it probably is. In addition to things such as when I heard that perhaps he was at the corner store and causing some issues, I have another individual who's wonderful who works there who actually let me know that personally. And I actually spoke to the store owner about taking measures so that he is not allowed on property. And my understanding is that that has ceased. And so we are trying to do what we can do to tighten things up with that particular individual. until we're able to formally do something. But trust me when I tell you, I'm going to be knocking down the doors of the courtroom ready. All the paperwork's ready, and we're just waiting for being able to formally see that process through. And to be honest with you, I actually offered off the record for this particular worker to assist in other ways if she's able to find housing prior to that time. Yes.
And I hope so, because let's
it's
face
true.
it, right? Criminals and people, let's just say it, they're not going to be following, your rules. They're not going to go ahead and worry about signs that you put up or fences.
You're right.
And that's the one thing I'm just trying to figure out. I have one last question, and then I'll stop bugging you guys, and I do appreciate it. This one's actually going to Sheriff Osborne. All right. How will the Toms County Sheriff's Office handle individuals in Lansing, more appropriately, the individuals residing in Milton Meadows, who have multiple negative law enforcement interactions, to include repetitive arrests when considering issues with respect to the bail reform?
Right. Hi, Brian. Can you repeat that? I'm not sure I followed your question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. So ultimately, what are we going to go ahead and do about the individuals that reside at Milton Meadows, okay, that keep on getting arrested, all right? And let's face it, due to bail reform, as long as it's not violent, they're going to go ahead and be back before the paperwork's done, right? So what is Tompkins going to go ahead and do? Are they going to go ahead and increase? I mean, I understand, like, you're going to have roughly around 3 to 4 deputies on shift, right, at a given time. And I'm just wondering how you're going to go ahead and cover a place that apparently needs, constant supervision of law enforcement.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Well, obviously, if we respond to Milton Meadows or any place and somebody needs to be arrested, we're going to do that.
Of course.
You mentioned bail reform. Obviously, that comes with a lot of things. A lot of arrests we make, bail isn't set. So yes, they're going to be given an appearance ticket, and they're probably going to return to where they started from. There's not much I can do about that. As far as handling calls in Lansing and specifically Milton Meadows, I mean, my hands, like you said, are tied to a certain degree. That's been talked about all night. I have to work with what I'm given. I can't hire more deputies on my own. I can't increase coverage in Lansing by providing more deputies unless I do it through my overtime budget, which we certainly do utilize quite often for specific areas when we need to, mostly surrounding traffic type issues. But yeah, I mean, it's the legislature that sets my budget and determines how many people I can have employed for me and how I would disperse them. If I had more deputies, would I assign more to what we call the 325 zone that covers Lansing and Groton? Absolutely, I would. The 325 zone has now become, over time, our busiest zone for a variety of reasons. It's surpassed Dryden. So yeah, it would basically be a call to give us more of what we need.
Would you say that
would you mind if I piggyback? Because I feel I have an answer that might also lend itself to your question. Even though bail reform is an issue and the sheriff's hands are tied with a lot of that, just know that my lease and my rules and regulations, and quite specifically, there's an addendum to the lease at Milton Meadows that discusses suspected criminal and drug activity, in the sense that if we have 3 incidents, even if they don't turn into a conviction because of the bail reform and all the things going on, 3 incidences that then become what is a nuisance, causing the inability of, quote, quiet enjoyment by other residents, I'm able to use that as a basis to evict. And truth be told, I promise you, outside of COVID, when that ability is there, we do that. We don't want to have unhappy residents or have an issue where people in the community hate that we're there. That's just not how we want to operate. We're a professional management company. We have a great track record. This is not just me giving you lip service. That is something that we take very seriously. That's why we have that addendum that is not part of the state lease for low-income housing tax credit, but an actual addendum that we added to it and had approved special through the state so that we could address issues like this.
Right. But like you stated, we can't do anything until you could go ahead and evict. So right now, individuals that cause problems are going to be brought right back to Milton Meadows, and we're just going to wait until the next call. Am I correct?
It's coming where that won't be the case anymore, but that is true for right now, unfortunately. And that is unprecedented in my 29 years of being in this position and doing this work. Unprecedented that has happened.
Understood. Well, hey, thank you, folks. I appreciate your time. Be safe.
You too.
Can I tag in here for a moment, please, Ed? I would just like Sheriff Osborne to talk about some of the other apartment complexes in Lansing, because I don't want Sue Ellen's presence here to make it sound like Milton Meadows is the only place that's got problem tenants. I'm sure you have issues at other places as well. And I want to make it clear that Milton Meadows is not the problem housing unit, that when you have a bunch of people in a small apartment complex, you always end up with a problem here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Thank
Joe,
you
I
for that.
appreciate you. Let me just comment. I appreciate your comments. And one of the reasons I asked you to come in, it appears that every time there's a hiccup, it gravitates to Milton Meadows. And if anybody watches the last Facebook streams, they had their come to Jesus moment at the end, and they realized it wasn't, after they had just berated them for an hour. So I find that, as we do with anybody, since we are an inclusive community, everyone is equal here and they're equal partner. I personally have had enough. I've had enough of this. Every time there's a problem, it's Milton Meadows. So thank you for that, and I'll turn it over to Sheriff Osborne.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. Anytime you have condensed housing units like that, we're going to have calls. I mean, that happens all the time. I can't speak specifically to other housing developments, but we have similar complexes throughout Tompkins County. And yes, we do respond to them quite regularly. I think if you looked at the numbers and did a study on it, if you so choose to, common sense is going to follow anyways, that it's going to be a small percentage of the people in any area that are causing the majority of the problems. I would guess probably 10% if I had to throw a percentage out. So yeah, it's certainly not everybody in these complexes that causes problems. It's a small percentage, and I'm sure that if we looked at it, Sue Ellen would be absolutely right. Incidences have gone up recently because of COVID and everybody being confined, and certainly her hands are tied in her ability to evict people when she needs to. So I'm sure things will change and be slightly better, if not majorly better, in the near future.
Anything else, Joe?
No, I just wanted to make sure that point was clear, because I saw on your Facebook page so many people saying Sue Ellen's here. That means that somehow Milton Meadows was connected to the event on last weekend, and it clearly isn't. And I don't want that misconception out there.
Yeah, I can flat out state that Milton Meadows had absolutely nothing to do with this recent incident. And I will reiterate that Lansing is statistically a very safe place, and it continues to be so. This incident was a very rare incident, no doubt, and that's what makes it so scary. But I don't want to paint the picture that now everybody's in danger in Lansing because of it. It was a very rare incident. We're dealing with it. It was a successful conclusion to it, and we'll continue to work. Hopefully things like that won't happen again.
Okay, thank you. CJ, is there anybody else waiting to have any questions for Sheriff Osborne or Sue Ellen Holmes?
I believe there's just one more. Hold on just a moment.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry about your back. Would those chairs be better? Good for back?
I'm with it.
Please, let me get it. I'll lift it off. Thank you. I think we're almost there. Okay. Ruth, can you hear us?
Open up the audio.
Any language can do that.
You may be in the waiting room. Did you send me the link? We have the same paper in front of you. Derek and Sue, I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. This is Pat from the Lansing Parks and Recreation Department. And I will probably be reaching out to both of you individually just on some of the incidents we've had take place and some concerns that I have, but I'm not going to take up any more of your time tonight. So I'll reach out to you probably next week with some of the things that we've had concerns with, if that's all right.
Please do.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Derek, I just want to say your deputies have been great. Anytime that we've needed them for anything, they've responded promptly. And, you know, we have a great working relationship with them.
Yeah, I'm very, I'll boast a little bit. I'm very proud of them. We got a lot of really good men and women that work for us, and they do a very good job in a very tough time for sure.
The good news is we might be reaching out to them again to have the fireworks again this year. It's great to have them around for traffic control amongst others. So hopefully we'll have that again this year on a positive note. They're a very enjoyable group of people, let's put it that way.
I can only hope we can have those events again.
Kylie said, don't tell you not to say her name.
Oh, I won't bring anybody's name.
There. Hi there.
Okay.
So, Norman?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have a question for Sue Lynn Holmes and or Sheriff Osborne?
Sure, both.
Go ahead, please.
My question for Sue. I understand your hands are tied currently. However, maybe not a question, more of just a comment. I question your vetting process. Most of the problems at Milton Meadows are known criminals in our area that are not first-time offenders. It's a who's who of drug dealers up there. And it's nothing new to anyone. So I question how the vetting process works. And I will say that most of them are probably not on the lease, but when you vet someone, I would assume you're vetting them and their known acquaintances, their baby daddies, however you want to put it, to find out who their known acquaintances are and if they're career criminals.
I can speak to that. I can tell you very honestly, no, that is not part of the vetting process. We have to follow New York State and government guidelines with the vetting process. And we have no way of vetting, as you called it, baby daddies or friends or who may be visiting. We can only vet the folks who are applying to legally live as part of the lease in the apartments. And then if we find out at a later time that there is a guest that's causing a disturbance, or as you put it, that there's drug or criminal activity due to that, we have a very specific, and I don't know if you were on the call to hear this or you just joined now, but the last gentleman I was explaining, we have a very specific addendum to our lease that's not part of the state lease. That's part of the program for the housing we have, that we actually had to have special permission to have added to the lease, that addresses suspected drug and criminal activity, so that if we have 3 incidences that we're aware of, and that doesn't even mean it has to be 3 where the sheriff's office was involved, just 3 reported incidences that we're aware of, we are able to use that as a premise for eviction, and we are very serious about it. We evict because of it. And it is not an excuse that if we were not mid-COVID, that is a step that we would take. We're very aggressive about that because we want it to remain a beautiful apartment community, and we want to make sure that we are an upstanding member of the communities that we're in. We want to be an active member of the community.
Right. Yes, and I understand that. And I don't understand how the vetting process works. Clearly, it's a broken system, because you should be able to vet people, have a process that works where that they don't come in if they're living with a drug dealer or a gangster, or because the people that are there, the 20 families that Ed spoke of are from West Village. They haven't moved very far. They moved 15 miles, got out of the city and came to Lansing, and they're doing the same things. And I guess, I don't know. I know you're trying. I understand that. And you do have a good guy working for you at the complex that goes above and beyond probably what he should be doing. And Zach, yeah. He does half of, all of his job and half of another one, but that's okay. He's very good. I spend a fair amount of time over there, and I don't live there, but I have family members that do live there. And so I am there on occasion, and it's obvious to me that there are a lot of good people that are there, but they're all living in fear. And I mean, from here on, I guess my questions will be directed towards Mr. Osborne. I just was curious about your vetting process. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, I do want to say to you, though, if you're aware of any specific information you can provide about either that, perhaps your friends that you're visiting or family members aren't comfortable sharing for one reason or another. And if you're aware of that and you have a relationship with Zach, and or if you want to call anonymously to the office and provide anything that we could use to address these things, we will do so. Any information that you have, I do wonder there, like I said, I have two specific individuals who, as soon as the court's open, they will see me. They will see me in court for those two specific people. You mentioned 10. That was alarming. If there truly are 10 individuals I need to be looking at, then I would ask that you please find a way, either anonymously or through Zach, if you're comfortable.
I can contact you directly in private and let you know. Sure.
Of course, I would.
I don't want to drag
that.
Zach into that. He doesn't deserve that, but I will most certainly contact you directly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. And now for Derek, if he has a minute, the same people that are on Sue's radar, please tell me they're on your radar too.
Yeah, we've actually had a very good relationship with Sue's team at the complex, and we do share information. Our deputies are there quite frequently. We know who the people are.
Okay.
We interact with the same people she will be interacting with, and yeah, for sure. We definitely know who they are.
Okay. And I know your hands are tied somewhat as well. My other question to you would be, these folks that maybe you and I know about that maybe Sue doesn't, maybe you could back me up a little bit. If I throw some names at her, maybe you can say, oh yeah, I know this one. Yes, this is a bad guy. If I could get some cooperation with your department too, as far as identifying some individuals that maybe Sue doesn't know about. But
I'd even go so far as to say, one thing I'm hearing here, I have no issue going forward as part of our vetting process, running some names by the sheriff's office.
Yeah, because I'm sure the same ones that I know.
Maybe it's folks who don't have, due to bail reform or different issues, perhaps aren't necessarily formally on any lists, that I could perhaps do something like that to address issues as well at the onset before moving folks in, so they don't become our problem.
Sure, you can most certainly throw a name at a prospective renter and say, well, what about this guy? Are you still with him? Do you still see him? Because he's not welcome here. Because at the end of the day, it's a private property. You can kick people off. But okay, So I think, and I want to thank whoever helped me get hooked up on the Zoom thing, because I was here the whole meeting. It's been this long trying to get the thing working. So I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I want to say that I want to thank Ed, but I know it wasn't him. It was someone else that was helping me through him.
Some things never change. I'm feeling the love. Thank you.
Yes, Ed, all the time. Yes. And thank you for honoring the veterans. Yes, you're a good man.
Spread the word. Spread the word.
I will.
They get first shot at it.
And if you want to talk about some of the other Lansing apartments, the ones up on Ridge Road, we had a certain incident that happened here not awful long ago that started there. We should probably be, looking at those folks too and getting them out of there. I have friends there too, so let's not, just pick on Sue here.
Thank you.
We have those too.
If I may make a recommendation, maybe the three of you have a conference call. Okay?
Sure. Absolutely. I am all for that. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a mighty scary situation that no one should have to live through. And let's see what we can do to make that not happen again.
Yeah, because it's still under investigation. We really can't talk about that right now, but only what we see on the Ithaca Voice maybe or other periodicals that you see out there. But
right.
They really can't have a comment here into detail. But
that's okay. I know we don't need to detail anything. It just let's do something before somebody really gets hurt that shouldn't,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that Ruth Hopkins?
Ruth let me know that she's just watching. She doesn't want to comment.
Okay. Anyone else, CJ?
Nope, that's it.
Do any of the board members or planning board members or else that were aware of this have any questions for Sheriff Osborne or Sue Ellen Holmes? We'll start.
There are no.
Brown, do you have any, excuse me, Andre, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just want to thank you very much for your time and your patience and your comments, because they're very well thought out, and I appreciate what both of you are doing. Thank you.
Okay, Brown, do you have any comments, questions, concerns you want to share with our guests?
Thank you both for coming, and just to reiterate what both you, Ed and Joe, said, that I hope this dispels a lot of the sort of misunderstandings about certain places, and that we can do as a town what we can to take care of the folks who need it.
Excellent. Doug?
Thanks for coming and explaining, and hopefully setting people, setting their heart a little bit at ease at this point. But thank you both.
Hey, Joe?
Yeah, I've asked my questions. I appreciate you both coming, and I just want to reiterate that every time I've reached out to Derek, he's been very responsive. And I'm sure Sue would be too if I ever had a need to reach out to her. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And like I said before, if you know of anybody who's a veteran that's looking for a place to live, have them get on the list. When there's an opening and they qualify, and it's the number of apartments that they qualify for, if you're single, not a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, they need to get on the list. They get first preference as long as they check all the boxes. You need to keep that word going out on that.
I would be happy to fill all of Milton Meadows with veterans. Would love to.
Yeah, ditto. Okay. Anything else from anybody else that's viewing one last time? I really appreciate both of you, exceptional professionals. Exceptional. They have a tremendous depth of knowledge and experience and compassion, which is a rare entity. But like I said, both of you extremely well. Like I said, Derek, the more I talk to, the more I've always respected you. But I got to tell you, I think my job's tough. I always say, at least I don't have Derek's job. So that was good on that.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks for inviting me. And I'll come back anytime you need me for sure. And I am aging much faster than I would.
And Sue Ellen, thank you so much. Thank you so much to put aside the rumors, accurate information, have an action plan going forward. I think hopefully within 6 months, things might have a different narrative. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. So, for the rest of the board, you want to take a 5-minute break or you want to keep going?
I'd like to get up and get a drink.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. So, Suan, if you want to, thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be right back.
Oh.
All right, put it on.
All right,
So she shouldn't
we're going
have used
live.
that
All
for
right.
lunch then, I guess.
Okay, Mrs. Munson.
That's right. Give her an extra half an hour, Deb.
Okay. Let's turn this back in. Okay,
Woo! Okay,
back to the agenda.
yeah, we're up to number 5, public hearing for special use permit, family livestock at 416 Asbury Road. Tax parcel 38-1-38 what's that?
I'll move to open the public hearing. All right,
Second,
Joe seconded.
go,
I
go,
thought,
go.
I thought you said that.
I did.
Okay.
That's okay. Somebody else,
Sorry,
somebody else
I
has,
just saw his.
that's okay.
I didn't see him, I heard that, so.
Sorry.
That's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
Anybody from the public want to speak about this?
I don't believe there's anyone here from the public. The applicant is here. If you'd like me to admit them.
Only if the applicant wants to talk, absolutely, bring him in.
Okay.
Hi, Dean.
Hi there. Boy, it's been a busy night for you folks.
Oh, we just got warmed up. So, I'm good for 48 hours before I get cranky. So do you want, this is the public comment, do you want to comment on this at all?
Sure. When we bought our property in 1985, the previous owner at that time had horse fencing on probably over 50% of the property, and they had 6 horses there. In the years that followed, we leased stall space in the barn. We had a tenant who had several horses. At one time, we probably had 6 or 7 horses there. One of my daughters raised rabbits for a while. We had about 50 rabbits in the barn at one point. Certainly never had any complaints from any of the neighbors about keeping livestock. The nature of the property and the fencing is such that the old fencing is not still there. So we would be putting new fencing up, and of course, meeting the requirements of the special permit. We would have substantially less pasture area than the property would accommodate.
So this has been reviewed by the code officer, was also to go through planning board too?
Planning board.
It didn't go through the planning board, just went through the code officer?
No,
So the planning board reviewed it.
Thank you. So this is their recommendation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or from anybody else or from Dean?
I'd just like to get in here because the last whereas says that we've reviewed a bunch of stuff, and I'd just like to get Dean to talk about the proposed water is accurate, that the glare and noise won't be a problem, sewage disposal, just so I feel like we've gone over it a little bit before we move forward.
Sure. The one thing that I don't understand in there is that, and I think number 3, adequate landscaping and screening is to be provided. As far as I can tell, the only landscaping we need to do is to maintain the pasturage and, we're not going to be putting up any screening. And we're not going to do anything to substantially change the land in any way, shape, or form. Currently, the road borders our property on the west side, Collins Road and Asbury Road to the south. We're bordered by a neighbor to the north and the east, and both the north and east properties adjacent to ours drain into our property. Our property drains to the south and the west into the adjacent ditches. So nothing that runs off our property is going to go onto a neighbor's property. We maintain our pasturage, so there's no issues with erosion there. Sewage disposal, the cattle that we're going to have on our property would be on the pasturage or in the barn, and we have additional area that we cannot use for pasturage, so we have plenty of space to do any spreading we need to do on the property. We're looking at having 4 to 6 cows maximum there, several of them being calves, beef cows. They're going to be a substantial distance as is required by the permit from the neighbor's property that are, non-farm properties. I don't see any glare or heat or noise that would be something that would have to be mitigated. Vibration as well. Odor. Yeah, there's going to be some odor from cow manure, but it's not going to be intensive.
Well, I guess I'd like to clarify the point that you're unsure of, which is the adequate screening. If this motion says that you're going to do adequate screening and you're not aware of any screening necessary, I think we need to get that clarified.
Yeah, I mean, what screening would be necessary so that people wouldn't see a cow?
I'm not sure how that language got in there, but I'd like that clarified.
It's in the code. It's in the town code under section 270-36. It's verbatim language from the zoning. So typically that's the findings that the town board would make. Certainly I don't think we have to enumerate all of them. But if screening and landscaping is adequate and there is none and that is still adequate, that can be adequate, basically.
I agree. Let's move this.
I'm just wondering if the language should say that the screening and landscaping is adequate rather than it will be.
But that's a site planning condition. So that would be up to the, so this application, just to clarify, there are 2 elements to this particular use in the town. One of them is a special use permit, which is granted by the town board, essentially after public hearing and review. And then it's going to go back to planning board later this month, and they're going to look at the site plan. And the condition of this particular resolution does say the site plan approved by the town of Lansing Planning Board. So if they want to work with the applicant to, examine some of the landscaping and screening, it's certainly within their purview to do so, for sure.
Okay, if it's going to get cleared up at the next step, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dean? If not, I'd like to move to close the public hearing.
Joe moves it, I'll second it.
I thought you moved.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keep on saying, I'm sorry.
We get mixed up all the time.
I've been looking at the screen.
Joe and I get mixed up all the time. They can't tell us apart. They think they were twins. Okay, sir.
Take my name.
Okay, so it's moved by Ed and it's seconded by Andrew, is that correct?
Yes, Andra is.
Okay.
She's got her finger on the buzzer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
You want to do the next one? You got motion on me tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna move the resolution authorizing the special use permit for farming livestock at 416 Asbury Road, tax parcel number 38.1-30.
Who wants those in? Joe, there you go. Joe seconds it. What a shot. Okay. This is a lot more fun in person, I gotta tell you. And hopefully I'll be here next month. Okay.
Is there any more discussion? Or are we done discussing this?
Any more discussion? You should see what she's looking at me with. It's unbelievable. You can't see, that's why she's off camera. Okay, Ms. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Bronwyn Losey?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item number 7, Terry Carroll will be put on our next month's agenda. So now we move to privilege of the floor. He has communicated with, I think it was Patrick. Was it Deb, somebody that says who we would do it next? No, it was CJ. CJ sent a message, so he'll be with us next month. So now we go to privilege of the floor. Is anybody signed up for privilege of the floor?
Yes, there was
Yes.
a guy on here.
Okay. If I don't see anybody here, so we'll go to.
That person decided not to come, that was gonna come
Okay.
in person, but there was another one.
So CJ? I think-
Yes.
Okay.
Hold a moment for Benjamin Finney.
Ben Finio.
Wow.
Hours and 20 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't see anybody here, so.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me now? Sorry, I had YouTube going, so I had a lag. Sorry about that. 1 second. Let me fix my lighting here. Okay. You guys can hear me okay?
And it's Ben, is it Finio?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Finio. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ed, could you repeat that?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I had some, and again, I apologize. I realize this is you guys are in for a long night here, and I'm switching topics a bit. I had some comments in response to the last special town board meeting about the potential for a development moratorium in the town in response to new projects like the Danny Mini Mart and the Dollar General.
Ben, if you could turn your speakers down because we're getting an echo from them. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. How's that? I turned. I paused YouTube. You still getting feedback?
That's good right there. Thank you.
Okay, so am I clear to proceed?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, Ed, this is mainly in response to some things you said at that meeting. First, I absolutely appreciate your caution about a moratorium and the potential for just getting the town into an expensive lawsuit that we could ultimately lose. I think, part of your job is looking out for our tax money and making sure we are not wasting it. So I appreciate that. But I would implore you to reconsider 2 things you said during that meeting. One is that people are being reactionary. That's a word you used a lot. And I don't think that's a fair way to characterize it. I am a new resident, a relatively new resident of Lansing. I've lived here with my wife for 3 years. We bought a house in a rural area. It was zoned rural agricultural. So we incorrectly assumed that meant that the area would only ever be farms and houses. And we find out one day that zoning actually means you can build pretty much whatever you want, and somebody wants to build a dollar store around the corner. So I think by definition, that was new information for us that we had to react to. It wasn't really something that we were aware of as residents that we could be proactive about. So I don't think it's fair to characterize that as reactionary in a negative sense. The second is this idea that there's kind of a vocal minority of citizens who are really opposed to this and a silent majority that either don't care or want the projects. I'm on the Lansing email list you mentioned. I'll be the first to admit that it kind of skews left-wing politically and likes to protest things. I don't think anybody would dispute that. Before this, it was the gun club. Before that, I'm sure there was something else. But you got to keep in mind, up here on Sharpstein Road, right around the corner from that Dollar General, Trump flags outnumbered Biden flags on this street 3-1 last year. I'd assume we got a lot of people on this street who vote Republican, who voted for you. And if we all have one thing in common, is we don't want that store there. This includes the older couple at the end of the street who have horses in their backyard that are now potentially going to be next to a loading bay for an 18-wheeler. And they went down and sat at Lansing Market the old-fashioned way and got, like 200 signatures on a petition against this? So they weren't from that email list with these talking points getting sent around. So again, I don't think it's fair or accurate to say that it's just a vocal minority and there are actually a majority that want this. I think you're ignoring some of your own base if you leap to that conclusion. But again, I do appreciate your concern and all the questions you asked Guy about, have these been successful elsewhere? How much have they cost? All that. If it's good to not just rush headlong into it without that caution. So I do appreciate that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that has privilege of the floor?
Yes. Ruth is rejoined. I'm anticipating perhaps they would like to comment. So I'll admit Ruth Hopkins in case they would like to comment.
Okay, Ruth, are you there? Do you want to use the privilege of the floor? Ruth, use privilege of the floor? I guess not. Okay. Okay, anyone else for privilege of the floor?
That's it.
Okay, we'll move on then. Number 9 in your packet is the library report. Number 10 is the Lansing Youth Service report. Question I would ask Patrick, does that seem optimistic this year to have more activity?
Absolutely.
Oh, good news. Okay. Number 11.
It's looking very good.
Excellent. Number 11, Tompkins County Legislature. Mike, are you still here?
The Mike Sigler.
Would you like to come up?
Sure.
Are you sure now?
Wait.
Wait, you're very patient, by the way. Thank you.
Wait till I zoom in on.
Children education. As my mother will attest. Well, thanks for having me. I should have spoke earlier when the sheriff.
Mike, speak right into the microphone, please.
Sorry, I should
Thank
have
you.
spoke earlier when the sheriff and the person from Milton Meadows were here. I have something to say about it. So yeah, I've only actually been called early in the morning about 2 things in Lansing. I'm talking earlier. One was when the miners were trapped in the shack. Obviously, all of that, and about this shooting, the car chase, and the whole 9 yards. And so listen, I understand people are concerned about this. Something that the sheriff said, I thought wrong, very true. Is the reason that it's so shocking is that it's very rare. And, I hope you keep that in mind. Obviously, listen, I appreciate the fact that certain people might even want, we should start on the police force. I mean, you could. The thing is, we have a great sheriff's department. He's understaffed. He has been for quite some time. That is not something that I have not pushed for more staffing on. Certainly something we pushed for, and I'll get a little bit into that in my report. Because right now it is a constant battle, frankly, to see how we actually reimagine the police force. And I'm certainly on the side of beefing up the sheriff's department, certainly making some changes, but some people forget. I mean, you have X number of people. We say you have 60. In an organization like that runs 24/7, those numbers, if you spread them out that far, you don't have that many people. You only have 3 deputies, right, at any given time. A lot of people too, you always have somebody on disability up there, 6 people on disabilities. I think the police department has, I think, 8 people on disability. That happens in a job like that. So certainly appreciate all the people that showed up to talk about it. I understand that people are worried and concerned. I mean, it is shocking, right? I get the call, I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I knew the road had been closed, so you assume it's a big accident, but you don't assume that it's everything else that goes into that. So, and we found out some other changes that I think need to be made, like to the airport, and how do we keep that open 24 hours? We have helicopters coming in, and they don't know if they can land or not. I mean, that's a problem. So that's something that we're certainly looking at the county. We will be shortly. I understand why some people connected maybe Milton Meadows to it. It wasn't that, it was this incident, it was that they perceived that there were other issues at Milton Meadows, so they kind of connected the dots, and they shouldn't have, but they did. But I'm glad to see that so much was talked about in Milton Meadows. Hopefully some of those issues that people have been kind of stewing in, maybe those were put to rest. I want to pass the credit around though, about Milton Meadows too, is that, listen, you could agree that it should have gone in or disagree that it should have been built. But the fact of the matter is the town made a decision. It was pretty overwhelming that the town wanted to move in that direction. Once that decision was made though, they looked at some of the other places around. I mean, I know I called Mollenhoff down in the city and said, listen, this place up by the hospital, we got a lot of calls up there. And then we got Ed in and said, how do we fix that? And Ed was very responsive, and Milton Meadows was too. And that's why you have somebody in Milton Meadows there 24 hours. These other places, a lot of them don't. They don't have somebody that's there. Why do you make it a public road through the development? So the police, they can go right in. They don't have to get permission from anybody to go and knock on somebody's door. They can go in. So I don't want people to think that those kind of issues weren't thought about. And this eviction issue is a problem. It's not just a problem for Milton Meadows, it's a problem for small landlords. You have a problem with tenant there. I mean, for small landlords, it's wow, the person stopped paying me, they're not leaving. For someplace like Milton Meadows, you might have an issue that you really get somebody out. It's troublesome to do that. So, and that was another thing that I know was part of the early discussions with Milton Meadows is if you have a problem with somebody, what do you do? And they were very clear about what they do. So definitely something that's brought them a headache, I'm sure. I'm going to get a little bit to the reimagining now because it's part of my report. So we'll come that up. But I just wanted people to know that yes, obviously, shocking turn of events there on a late Friday night, early Saturday morning. Something that we expected. So, and yes, we'll wait and see how it turns out with the investigation. So, happy St. Patrick's Day. I had my own cabbage, so that was good. Obviously, quite a bit of news over the past 2 weeks, but some things going down there. I think we've talked enough about the whole issue up there, the car racing and gunshots. And, that does bring us to reimagining of the police in Tompkins County. We have this big program going on to reimagine it. There's a big meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. If you want to tune in, it's a public safety meeting. It's committee meetings. This is where we're going to be kind of hashing out these 19 points. I have a lot of issues with some of the stuff that's being suggested, but 3 really kind of stick out. 3 biggest issues that I worry about, and I'm not really sure we'll be able to overcome, frankly, is the plan for the police department. Granted, I don't live in the city, but guess what? My wife worked there for 7 years, and you all go into the city, and we have spouses and friends and children that go and work there or maybe live there. And, so yeah, it's our business too. So how they reimagine the police department is important. I just think they have not done a good job. The launch of it was not good. I mean, you can't launch something and not tell the people it's most likely directly going to affect so that they read about it in the newspaper. And I don't know if you, frankly, I get it, it's apologized, Savante has. I just don't know if it's going to come back, frankly. I think it's something that was so bad at this point that I don't know if you can get past it. So if they can, I guess they'll force it through if they want to, but I don't think that's a wise move. I think with anything you do, especially the sheriff's department, you have to have the sheriff's buy-in. Because people are saying, oh, well, we have a say of the policy at the county level to tell them to set policies, so the sheriff has to follow it. But, to an extent, the sheriff, it's, what are you going to do? You can't fire him. So if you don't have his buy-in, it's not going to get done, frankly. So let's work on getting Sheriff Osborne's buy-in to the whole thing so that he can get what we want done. That's exactly what we did with the jail. We passed $1.4 million with the jail. We wanted to get the numbers from 80 and we wanted to get them down. Because what? The numbers are around 30 to 40 now. That worked. Why? Because Sheriff Osborne brought in and said, yeah, we're going to get this done. So I'm hoping that we take more of that tact that I haven't really seen as much. SWAT vehicle is a huge issue for me. That's actually the thing that started this whole thing. That was the thing I got the first calls about was, well, the SWAT vehicle, you're not going to do that anymore. What does that mean for SWAT? And I don't have a good answer. Frankly, I think there was a reason you put the SWAT vehicle into service in the first place. And now you're saying we don't need it anymore. I find that a little hard to believe. If we're going to move the SWAT vehicle, and frankly, I think at this point we should move the SWAT vehicle out of the police department and put it up in the sheriff's office. We can repaint it, brand it, do whatever you want to do with it, but I think it needs to be under the sheriff's office as opposed to being under emergency services. And I think it's a specific vehicle. It's something, some people are saying, well, the SWAT vehicle doesn't get much use. I haven't responded yet. The fire engine doesn't get much use either, thankfully so, right? But that doesn't mean you go, well, we're going to use the fire truck for something else. No, I don't want that sitting where it is, just in case. And I feel the same way about the SWAT vehicle. I think that if you get rid of that, I think that anytime you do something like that, it's looked on as a cut. And listen, SWAT is made up of people. People see you cutting something, they're going, no, you don't really support it. They're not going to want to be a part of it. And I think that's going to harm not just the SWAT vehicle, it's going to harm the SWAT force. And I think you need that force. So we will see where that goes. Also, the Community Justice Center, this is supposedly an implementation kind of thing, but the way it's been presented is it almost sounds like oversight of the sheriff. And again, I don't see how you do that with an elected sheriff. I don't want to put the county administration, who's unelected, somehow put them in an oversight role of the sheriff who is elected. That doesn't make much sense to me. It's very different than the model in Ithaca, where it's, yes, the mayor has oversight, he's the executive. He has oversight over his department because, yes, he hires the police chief. So it's just a different model. And that's why back in the day, 2 years ago, I didn't want them to co-locate because I thought there was just two different cultures. I didn't understand why you, frankly, it would hurt Lansing too. Move the sheriff's department downtown. Well, we need them up here and we like them up here. And as Derek said, Drive was getting a lot of calls. Well, now it's Lansing Drive's getting a lot of calls. It makes sense. It's where the growing area of the county. Right? So that was a fight 2 years ago. I want to thank Deb Dawson. That was a team Lansing effort to kind of push back on that. And thankfully, we were able to. And that's what concerns me about some of these propositions too, like the CJC. It's we're going to put them under one oversight. It's just it muddies the water, I think, too much. And but yeah, I think that the sheriff is asking for a little bit over $1 million to reimagine. He's got a pretty good plan in place. I'm hoping we can push that forward, and that will require more staff. I'm taking up too much time. I'm sorry, it's late. So I was going to talk a little bit on the governor. I did move a resolution about the governor. I won't go into too much depth. I was surprised that people didn't take the spike ball and offer it. This didn't have anything to do with the nursing scandal, or it didn't have anything to do with the woman scandal. It had all to do with the legislature should be returned to an oversight capacity. I don't even know why that's kind of an issue. I don't really care how the legislature reasserts itself, but listen, I talked to Ben Hellman a lot. I talked to Tom and Mara. These are people that we elect to be directed. Anna Kellis, she's calling for the same thing. I mean, this is a bipartisan effort. It's not Mike Singer saying, hey, we should do this. We're stripping all these powers. It's nothing like that. It's, listen, the legislatures are elected by the people. They're an equal branch of government. We have certainly moved from an emergency status of the virus to a management status. And it's time to reintroduce the legislature. At least that's my feeling. So, got 4 votes. So I want to thank Amanda Champion for pressing and voting on that. So, I want to recognize that it is Women's History Month. It's also Agriculture Month, which we did a proclamation for last night. But within Women's History Month, we certainly want to recognize all the women for the critical role they played in world history. We certainly wouldn't have a world without women, and yet women have been oppressed, and that does continue today, brazenly in some parts of the world, more subtly in others. To bring close to home how much progress women have made and how long it's taken. We heard something during Zoom recently that I thought was interesting, and that I don't think a lot of people do this, because I think I had heard it like a while ago and hadn't heard it recently, but Sheriff Osborne, in picking General as his undersheriff, General was the first woman undersheriff in the entire state of New York's history. And never mind. That's just, wow. Okay, so she said, like, yeah, I don't really remember that being an issue during the campaign, but I'm sure it was at some point. I must have missed it. And sure, I've heard it at some point, but I want to reiterate. So congratulations to Jen. We are proud to see women breaking so many ceilings, because that really is pretty remarkable. And when you talk about changing cultures in police, we certainly have a lot of women on the force now. That's 50 years ago, you didn't see that. So, COVID-19 vaccinations continue to ramp up. We're doing a great job with this. The county recently created a COVID-19 vaccine registry designed to assist demand. And you can call 211 and get right out of the registry if you don't have internet access. If you do have internet access, go to the Tompkins Health website. So far, about 8,500 people have signed up. I'm still waiting for my age group. I'm allowed to go and get it. I'm like a fish, but I don't think it's too much longer. Fit all. So they'll call my number pretty soon. But we were doing a great job in this county. We have the highest vaccination rate of all the surrounding counties. So people are really turning out and getting it, and I'm glad to see that. The sooner we can get everybody vaccinated, the sooner these shields can come down and stuff like that. So, lastly, I know we're all waiting on money from the federal government, and we'll be starting our budgeting process next month with the county. That will certainly play a starring role, and Lansing has its work cut out for its students. So congratulations on that type of money as well. And last update, it's not in the report, I'm sorry. Solar panels around Lansing, a lot more people are calling because it's and this actually has now filtered into the county legislature, because it's we have people at county planning that are talking about it and stuff. So it's the ORES regulations have come out. So these are the regs that the states can go on now. And I'm kind of unhappy with some of the setbacks and things like that. We will see what happens. I think with that, the idea though that this is in its infant stage, it isn't. All the land around me is leased. It's not just the Kirby farm, obviously. It's the Kirby farm. It's the Young property has already been leased. The Buck property has already been leased. And I talked to Nexera. So now I don't talk to the farmers anymore. I mean, I talk to them as a friendly kind of thing, but they're not in control of the property anymore. It's Nexera. So I talk to Nexera. They're very welcome. You can take my call. So if people have questions, certainly I can ask them if I can pass the number on. And, they acknowledge that it's a big project and that they will have neighbors and they say they want to be good neighbors, so we'll see where that goes. A little bit about Nexera. They're Florida Power and Light. They're 14,000 employees. They're bigger than ExxonMobil. So I will tread lightly with them and be kind. Hopefully they will be kind to me as well. But yeah, this people down on the lower part of Buck Road now too are talking about it because they see guys out marking the property and they're like, well, what's going to go there? So, and people still would like larger setbacks. They would like wildlife corridors. They want to know that native vegetation is going to go in between these very large arrays and the roadways, for example. And I don't think that's too much to ask. So that's what I'm going to keep working on. And Yeah, the first one that's going in is the Conquest. That's up, not North Country, but it's, north of 5 and 20 up there. And it's just north of Van Helming's district, so it's in the next district over. And, the people up there are asking for kind of the same things. This is not going to be a unique experience for Lansing. It's going to be all of upstate New York. So just something for us to keep an eye on, and I hope that we can do something as a town to prepare for it. So, that's it.
Is there any questions for Mike? No? Okay, thank you, by the way, for writing a letter, same with Donna Hartel, same with Deborah Dawson, to keep the sheriff's department up here. I'd love to have that discussion, or at least have you had that discussion with the county legislature. You have a police department, which is down in Ithaca, you have police departments elsewhere. I know that the sheriff's department has jurisdiction everywhere in the county, but would it be wise to let them use their police departments and free up the county for the sheriff's department for the ones who don't?
Yes, and I will say the other towns did write into the city too to say, and this was back in November, they said, what do you do? You're basically cutting your police force, and you keep cutting it. And now the sheriff is responding to investigations and things, and doing part of the investigation down in the city, and that's drawing resources away. I mean, the city's argument is, well, we pay for the sheriff's department, you don't get much service. We pay for the jail too.
Yeah. To your point about the vaccines, people dial 211, if they can't get on the internet, at least get on the registry. And that way they'll be contacted that there's a shot available, but you have to sign up for it. But at least they do that. So maybe if the elderly can't do it, because when we have these meetings Thursday morning, I constantly pound away at, the Office of the Aging is being involved, which is good. Just like the Veterans Association did for the veterans. One out of Syracuse, they called all the veterans and said, we'll put you on the list, the waiting list, we have to, whatever. They reached out to them as best they could. And so these other things are opening up. I'm very happy they are. I'm concerned that the elderly don't get stepped over because everyone else is there. I get all that stuff. So dial 211 if you can't log on or you don't have the internet, and they'll get back to you on that. And they'll put you on the list and register so that if something comes up, they'll notify you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And we are close, people. You look at it, it certainly seems that way. We can just get see what the CDC does. Everybody's too kind of waiting on what the CDC does with the 3 foot versus 6 foot. That's a discussion topic. If they move down to 3 foot with masks, then hey, the schools, they're in a lot better shape than they are today. So that's a big topic of discussion. That's something I hear a lot about. It's obviously the schools and the schools reopening.
And the last point is the quote unquote pot of money for the bailout. That was, we're still waiting for parameters. I did send all the information to all the board members. There is a paragraph in there that the quote unquote money that the town was going to be allocated. Part of that will be to the village. They have to determine what the villages are because it's based on population. So everyone's being calculated on that. And I'll leave it at that for now. So thank you so much.
No problem. You guys have a good night. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. Okay, cuz you're up. Matt. Next in line.
Hold on, I gotta get the camera back to you.
Back to me.
I'm just gonna open it up for questions or comments you might have for me and just move the meeting forward.
Okay, anybody have a question for him? Comment, concern? Praise? Good job.
Hoorah. Next.
Good job. Okay. Highway Department.
We have a report this month. Isn't that wonderful?
Finally had it. Well, Michael.
Good evening, everybody.
Starts a short night.
I'll leave it up to do the same as Pat. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I just had a quick question about what's happening to Salmon Creek Road south of the Red Bridge. It seems to be really falling apart, and you guys just redid that. And there's dozens of patches, and there's parts that are falling apart. What's going on there?
So what happened is we redid the road. We put down binder. We didn't get back to seal it up in time, so you get the moisture down through the porous blacktop. the water gets down into the gravel, expands and contracts, and then pops the blacktop. Last year, in order to patch it through, maybe it was a year and a half ago, we milled out and replaced it. I saw the condition of the road. We got rid of the loose material, put in some patch right now. Plan on resurfacing that road from Red Bridge to Ludlowville Road this year. It's on the schedule to be paved.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're most welcome.
Any other comments or questions? One comment I have on this bailout money is that when we get the parameters down, I looked at what effects our town had with COVID. And one of the things I would recommend is that the $200,000 that the highway department gave up for paving should go back into that department. And they're also willing to do it again this year. Looks like it's going to be a little bit healthier year this year with sales tax. We'll wait and see, but they're willing to do it again. They showed a tremendous amount of, I believe, responsibility and professionalism by making the initial effort to go through with their action plan starting in January of last year, as far as this goes, and be willing to cut back on things. And if we don't start accelerating, you can't pave everything in 1 year. And if we have some of that money back there, especially when it was caused by COVID, I think that should be a serious discussion. If we can do that, and I'll simply leave it at that, but I think it would send a strong message from our board to the highway department that, you know what, we work together. And you sacrificed, and now it's our turn to repay that trust. Now let's leave it at that. I'm waiting for the parameters, and like I said, this is one of 5 people talking. And if other people have other concerns, they'll be open to those discussions when it's appropriate. Okay, that's all I have to say about that.
I just like to emphasize that, Ed. I think that the money is going to be limited in some ways, but one of them is to our reactions to COVID. And we lost a lot of paving on our roads due to COVID, and we need to catch back up, or we're going to have to pay for it years down the road. We need to put money into the highway department from that in a substantial amount. And the question is, how much can you do in 2 years? Because I think they're going to limit us to having to spend that money within 2 years. And so we're going to have to sit down and figure out what you can do in that short period of time.
Okay. If nothing else, let's go on to the next one. Thank you, Mike. Director of Planning, CJ, who never sleeps, thank God, because she's doing the work with 3 people.
I'm sleeping.
You never get that board to be complimenting. It's all true.
Little bits. Anyway, yeah, I'll follow suit along with the other departments and just ask if there's any questions that you'd like answered.
I was wondering how the hiring was going for another.
That's a good question. So this afternoon I was supposed to sit down with Lynn and go over the job description, and that got booted to tomorrow, which is Damani is kind of the theme in the department lately. We're still trying to catch up from our month off, shall we say. So I'm hoping to have that position, which expands a bit on the existing position because it includes stormwater management officer as part of the title. Hopefully at the end of this week is my goal. But we have put some feelers out. Just to let you know, we have checked in with Southern Tier Building Officials Association, as well as some folks up at Cornell Facilities who I know might be able to tap into the network of code enforcement people. And so we're planning on putting out a pretty good reach too. I plan on posting to Indeed and LinkedIn, as well as the regular civil service network as well. So we're going to try to go as broad as we can.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
So let's keep in mind some things here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rowan.
Mine wasn't directly related. I just had another question for CJ. Were you gonna?
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm wondering, in the talk that we've had about sorting out the zoning in town, kind of where we are with the next step, when we can move forward with the next step. Do things lay with the overlay district, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's kind of a multi-part question.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
the next, no, it's good. I just want to break it down. First of all, the planning board recently finished up the appendix of questions for the land use audit. So there'll be a narrative report coming with that to kind of prioritize what I saw as some kind of low, medium fruit, essentially, that we could act upon quickly. Now, that said, of course, if you did want to do a more consolidated and wholesale overhaul, we can also talk about that. My intention and understanding was that the town would have the budget to, do this kind of slowly over time or over a few years, essentially, which even with a big budget, it would, typically a zoning overhaul done all at once will take a few years, even with consultants working full time on your project. That's just kind of the facts of it. And as for the overlay districts, let me just go to my email because I have been corresponding with the planning board. I did send them the specific directive, the proposed purpose of the overlay district. And I sent them a link to the Conservation Advisory Council's draft scenic inventory, which is generously being hosted as a working document right now by one of the members. And they responded with wanting to see some maps of the specific areas that Joe and I had discussed some time ago. So trying to see what parcels would be impacted by the various overlay districts. And so I did ask them about the scheduling a special meeting for the end of the month, but I haven't been able to confirm whether that is that they actually want to do that. I heard one thing from the chair and another thing from the vice chair. So we'll be meeting on this coming Monday. And so I'm hoping to have a firmer answer. So because I'd really like them to really reflect upon the proposed purpose of the overlay district. If we're just going to focus on that first, the scenic byway overlay districts is what I mean to say. The geographic extent of that, the permitted uses by right, any prohibited uses, any specific landscaping and design standards they want to see, as well as any specific, lot area or form requirements that they would like to, walk through relative to that particular overlay district. So I don't know, but maybe they want to do them all at once. It's hard to say without actually sitting down and talking with them about what it is that they want to do.
Thanks.
Anything else? So let me give a little background here real quick. Lynn is now back in. He seems to be getting better. He's getting his energy back, which is good. He got his brace off today. So
Can you talk closer to the mic, please, Ed?
Oh, certainly. So just to give you an update here, Lynn is back. He got his brace off, so he doesn't look like Freddy anymore. Freddy Krueger is with his grip, and he's slowly returning. He's coming in he's spending Friday afternoons and Saturday trying to catch up on the building. He's now doing safety inspections, and he does the scrambling. He just gears it down and grinds. And so he's also coming on Saturdays to try to do some of the building permits, because once again, there were no building permits probably in February because he wasn't here. Keep also in mind that Heather's going forward, and Doug and Joe, your packets are about an inch thick for the planning board. And that's a visual. In the meantime, CJ has her lens wide open for grants also to go back to 2020, because they feel some of that money might be freed up now because the governor was holding back on it, which was understandable because we didn't know where we were going to be. So there may be other pots of money coming in as other pots get dropped off. And so she's, once again, sending out pings left and right to see where they are. And she's prepared, which is amazing, so that when they come forward, it's almost like you just make a few adjustments and you hit the button. And that's remarkable on top of stuff. So she is firing on all 12 cylinders. So again, as we try to find somebody to help her, plus we're looking for another code officer, plus who knows what else we need over there. The money's there to do this. It's very healthy, and part of it has to do with her leadership and the good hard work of Heather and also Lynn. So let's keep that in mind when we start putting more stuff on them. I know there's a sense of urgency to get this zoning done now, but in all fairness, we've been pulled in different directions here. Leave it at that. I'm very concerned that we don't burn out our thoroughbreds, so to speak. So that's all I have to say about that.
I would just like, I'd like to quickly state that we have this money coming in under the COVID Relief Act. And since it's being split between the town and the village, it's going to be going to the B fund mostly. And I would like to see a chunk of that go to CJ's office because I know she needs some help. And, since we're getting this huge pot of money, I think that would be money well spent to kind of help her get caught up, giving her some money to hire consultants and stuff, maybe hire a part-time person for a couple of, because I feel your need for it. And since we have this money coming in, I think that would be money really well spent. And we just have to figure out how to make that fit within the parameters.
To your point,
Oh,
Joe,
yes, and
the 5-year spreadsheets were done today by Charmaine. You'll be able to look at some data there. You'll see that the B fund is extremely healthy. We don't have to wait. Now, granted, there's 1.28 million that is going to be allocated, probably half this year and half next year. With any strings on it, who knows? So let's just say it's 1.2 for easy math, right? Let's just say it's 600,000 that the town Lansing gets, but the village is approximately a third of that. So now we're down to 200,000 for the village. This is these estimates, don't hold me to it, and 400,000 for the town outside the village. The money's there already for her to do that. When you look at the fund balances, you can do the calculations over the last 5 years what the levy is. It's amazing how much money is there. Consequently, we add that to the DB, we're about at 6 months. But my point is that if she knows this, we can get moving on this now. We don't have to wait. It's just finding somebody right now, and that's the thing. Plus, producing the in-stick packets every month. So to your point, I totally agree with you. We should be moving on sooner, but she's only one person. So my point is to be patient. I know we all want to get this done. Just be patient. Okay.
And if I may, just jump in for just a quick second to expand on that. I think some of the pieces are, we prepare an annual work plan, of course, but there has to be some contingency. And one of the things that have kind of come up quickly is, for instance, like Bridge New York money. Like I've been hearing for the last 2 years, we need Doug Bridge, we need to coordinate with County Highway on this. And so when that happens, it's drop everything and make sure that we start to evaluate that, make sure the town engineers are aware of it. And it's just a fact. that's the thing. We can kind of be like, well, it's not on the work plan, so, we're not going to bother, but that's not, I can't really in good conscience do that either. So, and as for the hiring piece, it's going to be really challenging in my opinion, to find somebody who's willing to be part-time, but is seasoned enough to really run the whole development review process, to staff planning board, staff all the committees and the council, that I really need them to keep a close eye on as well, to free me up for some of the larger picture things that we really need to focus on. Especially relative to, utility scale solar. I happened to run into Heather McDaniel today from the IDA, which is great. And we had a great conversation about that, but it's come to, I realize I really need to be focusing on these higher level things and not be bogged down with, planning board and municipal review referrals and things like that. So I hear you loud and clear, and, we're moving on it, and we just have to find the best candidates for the town. So bear with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, let's see. We have an engineer's report, nothing to report this month, and ag committee report, nothing for this month. We're going on to agenda number 17, consent agenda. The consent agenda is next.
Okay. So that's at the end. So I think last time what we did, remember I moved it all to the end. So I think someone just read the titles of them, and then at the end was where we make the motion and then we vote.
You want to do the first three?
Okay, there we go. On the consent agenda, the very first one, motion authorizing stormwater operating stormwater operating management and reporting agreement for the 2018 Road and Building Plan. Next one, motion authorizing Director of Planning to execute fire and building code consulting proposal / agreement 2103092 for review of Marabito Holdings, Inc., Lansing Propane, / petroleum storage and distribution facility, phase 2. C, motion to authorize Parks and Recreation Supervisor Patrick Burrell to sign non-disclosure agreements.
Perfect. Bronwyn, like to do D, E, and F?
Sure. D, resolution adopting local law number 1 of 2021 to amend and update Town Code Chapter 18, Ethics. E, resolution approving Town of Lansing Public Employer Health Emergency Plan. F, resolution authorizing execution of concession license and agreement for non-motorized watercraft at Myers Park.
Okay, I'm on your list in alphabetical order. So Doug, you want to do G, H, and I? Please.
Yep. Resolution accepting and approving Water and Sewer Advisory Board recommendations for the CWD proposed extensions 6 and 7 and terminating Article 12-A formation process due to lack of feasibility. H, resolution approving Water and Sewer Advisory Board recommendations for updated CWD advisory opinions and amendments to the town code. And you said 4. Budget.
One more.
Approve audit and budget modifications and supervisor's report.
Mr. Bunsen?
So you realize it's 2 supervisors' reports, January and February, because last month we didn't have the January one, just so everyone's aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move the consent agenda.
There a second?
Second.
Doug takes seconds.
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine,
Yes. Okay, on to board member reports.
I have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do this every time. I always stub my toe on
No,
this.
we did vote. I just called the roll call.
Oh, sorry.
On
It's
the
getting late.
board member reports.
That's late.
Okay, 2 of the reports are already there. It's the library and,
I can't hear you, Andra.
2 of the reports are already in the packet, the library and, Lansing Youth Services, for which there's a meeting tomorrow night. I also, of course, attended the CAC, and we are still working on our scenic resources. And I have to say, the last meeting, I really kind of pushed it that how important all this is and how we have to get it done. And we talked about the scenic byway, and CJ will attest to all that. And I think we're getting there. Maybe slowly, but we're getting there. We're trying hard. And then the Environmental Management Council, I also attended, and the first meeting of the year was a reorganization, but now they're really pushing for more outreach to lots of different small and large organizations that are involved in the environment. And I asked them to please add our CAC and Salt Point, and so that they knew that we had other, and our town board, of course, that we are also doing things. So that's it.
Good. Bronwyn?
Friends of Salt Point met. Tentative cleanup date is set for, I wrote down May 8th, but now I'm questioning my writing down. So I'll have to get back to you on that for sure. I attended a couple trainings in the last month that were really interesting. One was about rural internet challenges and opportunities. And the kind of most important takeaways were emphasizing that broadband is critical infrastructure, which is what we are saying as a town, and that looked at different models of how to do it. And the first step in any of the models would be a feasibility study. And kind of the first two things to look at would be at interest in the town and the location of the middle mile, which were likely to be much higher up, have a leg up on a lot of towns who are trying to do this. I also attended the training that Guy did with the planning board. That was really helpful about land use and such. And there was another interesting one called user-centered zoning, and it was sort of how to engage the community in zoning, both in planning your zoning and setting it up, and then once it's there in the implementation and how to make it user accessible and user friendly. And then we had a Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future, and there is an application out there because a new member, there's at least one new spot available. And that's what we've got going on. So, and I did the broadband too, but rather than belabor the point, Joe can cover that. So
I'm sure you will quickly. Okay, Doug?
Yeah, the Water Sewer Advisory Board passed on to the town board for approval of CWD 3. I didn't think that was in our consent agenda though, as I just read it. I thought 6 and 7 were in there, but maybe not. Anyway, a couple other things with that. For our, well, for CWD 3, I'm sorry, I messed that up. That's the Auburn Road one, I believe. Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Waiting on a topo and a boundary survey, and recommends we wait until we move forward with that. As far as a target date for that, CWD will be 2022, the spring. Not much else in that. Our planning board meeting on the 22nd.
I'll say it. Keep going, Doug. I'm sorry. Keep going, Doug.
Dandy Mart. Of course, that was a big question there. But CJ pointed out we had no formal application as of that time. There was a lot line adjustment on Hillcrest Road for several properties, or just off of Hillcrest, Whispering Pines. Lansing Propane, the Mirabito area. A lot of concerns about the tanks, a lot of concerns about what it looks like. I know the fire chief spoke, Brad George, about the deluge system and a windsock. Several other people brought up berms for blast and so on. So that's about it.
Great, thank you. Joe?
Broadband committee met on March 2nd. We talked a bit about the revising the Spectrum franchise agreement. Some of the feedback I got from TCOG was that if we raise the franchise fee, that it's just a pass through that'll end up going straight to the customers and not coming out of Spectrum's part of the bill. And so we're a little concerned about raising that money and essentially just taxing the folks who have cable. And of course, we would have to explain why that's part of our expenses and having them in the town. But we are still interested in doing some kind of RFP, but the committee was really leaning towards doing an RFP that was based on the revenue raised as opposed to an upfront fee. And at some point, we need to sit down with CJ and talk about the process of doing that and where it would fit in her timetable, which I know is really clogged up at the moment. We talked a bit about the seminar that Bronwyn went to, and that was very interesting. Another thing that came up is my understanding is that some of this money that's coming in from the COVID relief fund can be spent specifically on broadband issues. And so we might be able to use that to pay our share of the county's study that's being funded. And we should look for other things that we might be able to spend it on, since that's one of the specific things that this COVID relief bill says we should spend it on. And I don't have any specifics. It was just starting to be announced at the time we met, but it's something to keep in mind. And another thing we talked about a bit was the TCOG committee that's overseeing the study that the county is doing, and setting up a process in which I'm going to be getting feedback from that committee and bring it back to the broadband committee so we get a larger group of eyes on that study. So the whole committee is going to be involved in that. And I just want to mention that the planning board session with Guy was really interesting. I couldn't make it, but I reviewed the slideshow. Wished I could have heard Guy's presentation on it, but it was really interesting and thoughtful, and I appreciate the work he put into it. It was clearly, a lot of thought.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. So Spectrum's contacted me with a franchise agreement. And we talked about this, it was back in September, we talked about franchise agreements also for fiber optics.
Can you get close to the mic, please?
So Spectrum sent me a franchise agreement contract, and you all have it, I think, at least I sent it to you. I'm gonna bring Guy in here. As far as the cost passed on, I have some more comments about broadband in general. But Guy, is it true that if we get a better agreement that just passed on to the consumers, can that happen?
Well, let me make sure I understand what the presumption is there, because there has been for a very, very long time a meme that suggests that if you collect a franchise fee, the franchisor simply passes that fee on to the consumer. And there's some truth to that, because their rate making through the Public Service Commission is based on their overall expenses. But there's not truth to it in the sense that it's an immediate pass through, because they have to get their rate making approved by the Public Service Commission, and they have variable rates and allowances for what their franchise fee are on a county or regional basis. So the last time this was looked at, not counting 2012, 14, 15, 17, or 18, but when Mike Long looked at this in 2019, he was flabbergasted that the town wasn't getting the maximum franchise fee, since that cost did not pass through to end users, particularly given that there are now a lot of deductions from the franchise fee, such that anything under 2% is probably close to zero. So, this has been an issue for over a decade, and here we are. So I would defer to someone who's a lot more conversant with the actual nuts and bolts of that regulatory system as to what the relationship is relative to the franchise fee. But if you were to go to any municipal website that services or addresses franchise fees, whether it's electric, cable, telecom, whatever it is, in just about any state, they basically say this is a source of revenues that municipalities should not be overlooking. So whether that's true in this county, in this state, and for this town, and whether you choose or choose not to overlook those revenues, that's your call.
Guy, can I just step in here? Section 10.1 of the franchise agreement in part reads, franchise fees may be passed through to subscribers as a line item on subscriber bills or otherwise as grantee chooses, consistent with federal law.
Okay. There's a lot of things that they can pass through consistent with federal law, and some things they can't. So are you saying that if the town has a 5% franchise fee, that they put a 5% tax on the bill?
It sounds like it.
Well, no, the franchise fees only cover a very limited portion of what services they provide. So it doesn't cover telephony, it doesn't cover internet, it doesn't cover a lot of the services. I believe it is limited only to subscriber-based television services. But I'd have to look into that more closely because in 2019, there were some major overhauls at the state and federal level. And how the accounting is done for this now is Byzantine. I'm not going to tell you that I'm up to speed on all this to be able to tell you exactly how it would work, but I've heard since 2005 or since 2003 that the town shouldn't have a collective franchise fee. And every single consultant and resource I've ever consulted has said the town should be getting the maximum franchise fee so that it can generate revenue to support other aspects of this type of programming. So, whether you want to do that or don't want to do that, I would say get whatever advice you think is reliable and decide.
The other concern we have is the RFP going forward. That I think was discussed in September from the Broadband Committee. From September, from the Broadband Committee for an RFP moving forward on this. I think that's one of the recommendations. And once again, I'm not throwing stones at the county. But the county tried to do broadband before. Am I correct, Guy? They've been down this road before.
Well, the county used and sort of helped or participated in and shepherded a TCOG oriented program to do last mile funding. And the problem, of course, is that in this county, it's not the last mile that is the problem. It's the middle mile that's missing. So yeah, they tried doing it. It was largely radio based. There was some areas did get service. Other areas never got a reply based on the plan. I think that broadband probably is more of a county level solution than an individual municipal solution because radio signals and cable signals don't really recognize municipal boundaries in that sense. But as far as cable franchising, I believe TCOG at one point had a committee in like 2011 or 2012 that was looking at cable franchising, and somewhere around 2016, I gave up trying to figure out where it was.
So these are just food for thought as we continue down this road. The other thing is that, once again, we're hired by the taxpayers of Lansing to take care of Lansing first. It's not throwing stones at any of our neighbors, but our obligation is to Lansing first and foremost. And this pandemic has shown some glaring holes in how our services are not met to the most vulnerable, especially out in the outskirts. Having said that, when we look at the money, there is New Visions, I believe is who it is, that did all the broadband in Cuyahoga County. They're all done. And we'd be happy to reach out to Carmen, and he can come in here hopefully and do a presentation of how that goes about. Because, we've been dancing here. I've been dancing since I first became supervisor with Clarity Connect, amongst others, and it was never enough density, never enough this, whatever. Not throwing stones at anybody, simply saying that at now, I think especially when infrastructure now includes broadband exclusively, and there might be more pots of money out there, and I realize that the broadband has just started and they got a lot on their plate, not throwing stones at them, but the priorities I think should be the franchise agreement, and let's see if we get this. And I know you've been doing the inventories, and I appreciate that. The other part, though, is to move forward. We need to get moving forward on Lansing if we can, especially if the opportunity is there. It'd be absolutely tragic if there's money out there and we don't qualify it because we're set up. Once again, that's another CJ thing, right? Here we go, pile on. So anyways, more discussion.
So,
on that. Go ahead.
Yes, Guy, I have a follow-up question. So my understanding is that the franchise agreement is only for cable. If we were to negotiate a franchise agreement, they gave us 5%, would that go through to all and be 5% added on to folks' cable bills, not their whole bill, but just their cable bill, or would that sort of be eaten by the company? I think that's where the concern of the committee was, is that if it just gets passed on to individuals, it's just a different way of taxing people. Whereas if it were to come out of the company's funds, it'd be different. Are you clear on that?
Oh, I'm clear on what the argument is about why not to do
Right,
it.
right.
I'm not clear on how the math actually works.
Got it.
In terms of the billing. If you look at what a franchise fee is, it's really technically a rent to a provider for the use of the town roads and highways.
Okay.
That's really what its origin is.
Got it.
So there's not a one-to-one relationship. If you say, well, we don't want to tax the people that are getting that benefit. Well, on some level, the entirety of the town is sort of paying for that benefit for something that's not distributed to the entirety of the town. So if you want to get down into the
Interesting.
micromanagement
Okay.
taxation issues, you can get in really deep. But at the end of the day, it's a revenue stream. And where the balance is between the revenue stream that benefits the town and invidious or individual impacts that are unfair to individual users, that's where you set that balance. And again, I have some knowledge of FCC process, perhaps better than the average person, even better than the average attorney, because I've had some experience in that field. And I've yet to meet a single consultant anywhere in this field or find a single site that's devoted to educating municipal officials and communities about what is a franchise fee that says, nah, don't take it. So, maybe there's something unique about New York that deserves a close look, but if you never hire the consultant, maybe you never get that answer.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, food for thought. Two more things real quick. Air Service Board, we talked about when the helicopters were needed, I think on Friday night, the airlift people.
Right up to the microphone, Ed.
Buddy, I'd be swallowing if I get closer. Okay. Concerned about, not to throw stones here, Joe, but I'm concerned about your, about your system over there. So anyways, is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay.
Much better.
Perfect.
All right. So anyways, Air Service Board, which is one of the boards I'm on for the airport, which is in Lansing, contrary to popular belief by some. So the airport in Lansing, as you know, there was this incident on Friday night and people need to be airlifted. And they do not have a 24/7 person there to unlock the gates, amongst other things. There's a 4-hour gap. And this would be a zero net as far as revenue goes, or excuse me, expenses goes. So this is something that we're talking for the Air Service Board, and hopefully Mike Stabler picks up the flag and tries to allocate for the county to allow somebody to be there 24/7. We were very fortunate last time to have somebody do that, but that's not always the case. You need somebody there 24/7 at the airport to be able to open up the gates, get the ambulances through for the helicopters. So that was part of that. Consolidated Water District number 3, Doug was absolutely right. We're starting the survey for that one with the go date, hopefully about a year from now. And the survey started and the letters have been sent out that we're going to move forward. And you have concerns, you're going to have to address them or sign the easement or let us through. And most of the stuff can be done through the highway right away. Hopefully, we'll see where the survey goes, but we're at the point now where the people voted on it, the majority wanted it, we need to move forward. So that's all we have for that. Anything for work session? You want to call it a night?
Call it a night.
Okay.
I agree, Doug.
All right, we got 3 for that at least. Executive session sounds like nothing. Meeting adjourned.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.